Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Saturday, the 22nd of July. Today, a surge in getaways. More than 2 million holidaymakers will head overseas this weekend. Are they going to have a smooth journey?
The Conservatives need to claw back support after their by-election defeats. Is ditching net zero the way to do it?
The Lionesses ready to roar again as the Women's World Cup kicks off down under. They'll go up against Haiti later this morning.
And what's happening weather-wise today?
It's a damp start for many of us, but will it be a weekend washout, or is there any brighter weather on the horizon? I'll have the full forecast coming up soon.
Morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
And we have to start this morning by saying happy birthday, Prince George.
Yes.
10 today. 10 already. And doesn't he look a proper grown-up little fella? He's on the front of all the papers this morning. Here's the Daily Mail. He's on, this shot's on just about everything.
Yeah.
And doesn't he look like his dad?
He does look like his dad. He looks like a little boy now, rather than a child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He looks a lot more grown up, and I feel like he's getting more and more comfortable in his role as well. I saw a video of him this week, and he's shaking hands. He's always come across as almost the shyest of the three, I think.
Maybe. Well, yeah, it's not like Louis.
Not like Louis. And Charlotte seems to just take to it very naturally, I think, like her great-grandmother. But George is really growing into his role. So it is lovely to see him. I feel like we've watched him grow up.
Well, we have.
Well, we have.
10 years old. I mean, it doesn't seem that long since they got married, does it?
No. Well, I remember when he was born. Sound like an old woman now, don't I?
Yeah.
But I do remember the day he was born because someone played a trick on me, played a prank. I was so excited for him to be born because obviously it was their first child. And they were like, Ellie, they've had the baby, it's a girl called Diana. And I burst into tears because I thought it was just beautiful. And then it wasn't true.
Oh, you
They hadn't
great
even
soppy
given birth yet.
devil.
I know, what am I like? But, no, that would be nice, a girl called Diana. But it wasn't. It was a boy called George. Now he's 10.
Yeah, so there you go.
Lovely.
There you go. So it's nice to wish him a happy birthday. Cameron Walker's looking into all of that sort of thing a little bit later on for you this morning. But our main news for you today, and I'm afraid it's to be expected, but it's always grim. About 2 million holidaymakers are going to head overseas this weekend. It's the start of the summer holidays, so everyone's desperate to go. It's like there's a firing gun, isn't there? A firing pistol. It's like everybody's off. Anyway, today is expected to be the busiest day of the season, according to ABTA.
Well, the rail strikes are going on. There's airport queues and there's also delays at the port of Dover, which could make these journeys anything but pleasant.
All right, let's talk to travel guru from The Independent, Simon Calder, who joins us now from, well, I don't know where he is this morning. You'll have to tell us, Simon. What is going on? What can we expect this weekend?
Well, look, the reason I am here at Dover, you can see the White Cliffs and you can see the cars going into the port, and that is because this is the busiest 4 hours of the year. Can you believe? Just started at the same time as your lovely programme, carries on till 10 a.m. Cars expected to turn up at a rate of 13 per minute. And certainly the rate I've been seeing them here so far this morning, that feels about right. This, of course, is the ferry port that takes people to across to Calais and also to Dunkirk. And if you remember this time last year, I was standing in exactly the same place talking about utter chaos because early at the start of the getaway weekend, and for many people it was the first holiday they've been on, not just since the COVID pandemic, but also since Brexit. And when we voted democratically to leave the European Union, we also said we want to be treated as third country nationals. We want to have our passports checked and stamped, and we want that to happen in lovely southeast Kent. And there isn't much space, actually, between the cliffs and the channel, and that's why things gummed up. So they've spent the last year trying to figure out how they're going to improve things, and actually, just looking around, it's moving pretty slowly. They are saying they could possibly have delays of 2.5 hours, but Stephen, it's unlike when you turn up at the airport and you're queuing for hours and your plane goes without you, at which point you're in serious trouble for hundreds of pounds. If your ferry sails off without you because you're stuck in a queue, well, don't worry, they'll just put you on the next one. No fuss, no charge.
Well, that's OK then. Hopefully, fingers crossed for people making their way over to France, perhaps on a ferry today. And what about in the skies, Simon? How's that looking for people jetting off today?
Actually, things are relatively calm. We had yesterday, and it was, by the way, yesterday, the busiest day in the skies of Europe since 2019. A lot of records being broken, or at least we're reaching back to before the pandemic. Over 35,000 airline movements. London Gatwick is always going to be the focus of attention because it's the busiest runway in the world. But you'll remember that a couple of weeks ago, we discovered that EasyJet has cancelled 1,700 flights in and out of Gatwick over the next couple of months. And the airline has done that at its biggest base, basically to try to maintain schedules. And that seems to be working relatively well. I'm a lot more concerned, of course, about the railways. And that has been a complete pain. We are now into the, I think, 30th day of strikes by members of the RMT union. They have decided that they're going to be walking out in this very long, very bitter dispute over pay. And so at least half the train services across England have been wiped out. You have, if you're lucky enough to live in Scotland or Wales or indeed Northern Ireland, you can expect a normal service. Things are exacerbated. They're made worse today because of engineering works up and down the country. But actually, on Thursday, which was the first day of the latest round of strikes, I was travelling a fair amount by train, and the trains which were running seemed to be fairly reliable. And unfortunately, the train strikes are going to drive yet more people onto the roads.
Well, yeah, that's the issue, because we talk about 2 million people wanting to get out the country, but for the rest of us in the country, trying to get anywhere on the motorways is going to be a nightmare, isn't it, this weekend?
Well, that's what the motoring organisations say. The RAC is saying, OK, we are really worried about, would you believe, the M60. That's the Manchester Orbital motorway between junction 11 and junction 14 going anti-clockwise. That's what they've picked out. But there's also going to be jams, you can be pretty sure, at various stretches of the M25 around London. The M6 going to the lovely lakes, despite the rain. Who wouldn't want to be in Ulverston today? And, of course, the M5 southbound from Bristol, everyone heading for Devon and Cornwall. So the advice is, well, you got 2 hours to get there, in the sense that they're saying finish your driving before 8 a.m. or start after 7 p.m. because otherwise you're going to be absolutely flummoxed, and you can expect jams pretty much anywhere. So wherever you're going, hope for the best, but be prepared for delays and disruption.
Lovely stuff, Simon. Get you throwing a reference to Ulverston in there. You know I love it. Simon, thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, Simon.
So do I.
You see, he's fallen in love with the Lake District, as Simon.
He has, and that was all down to you, I think.
Well, no, he was going anyway, to be fair.
No, but he asked for your tips, your guidance. He knew that you knew the lakes like the back of your hand.
You see, if you're going to go to Ulverston, go to Gillam's, lovely little sort of, actually a veggie cafe, believe it or not. It's been there for years. Beautiful.
He's across it all.
Ah, yeah.
The walks, the food.
Got to be done.
It's a lovely part of the world. It really, really is.
You've only been once.
I know, for about a day.
But you liked it.
Yeah, and I'm not really the outdoorsy type, so there you go.
She's not.
And even I was sold.
So there you go. If you're heading out anywhere today, if you've got any travelling to, and actually whether you're going on holiday or just going to see a relative or whatever, let us know, because it's going to be problematic. I'm dreading the journey home today.
Are you? Oh no.
I think it'll take twice as long.
Really?
Just because the motorways are jam-packed.
Yeah, I'm worried about the train home. This is it. Especially at weekends, it's difficult, and this is the
Nightmare.
busiest weekend of the year. So good luck if you're travelling today, and if you're heading off on holiday, let us know where you're going, and best of luck to you. You might need it. Pack some snacks, I'd say, and be prepared. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Now, Rishi Sunak is apparently set to launch an aggressive campaign to fight Labour's lead in the polls with divisive policies on immigration, crime and trans rights. It comes after two huge majorities were overturned in yesterday's by-election results.
Well, according to The Telegraph, Cabinet ministers have also urged the PM to ditch key net zero pledges following the unexpected win in Uxbridge, where ULEZ was weaponised against Labour.
Let's talk to former Special Advisor to Nadeem Zahawi, Mark Lehane. Morning to you. Look, you could understand the PM wanting to draw some clear blue water to make the Conservative approach seem a little bit sharper. But the idea of this having divisive campaigns seems a little bit odd.
Well, there's no doubt that after Thursday's results, it's absolutely squeaky bum time. MPs will have gone home from Parliament because obviously Parliament's now broken up for the summer. They'll be talking to their constituents. They'll be looking at those results. And if you're a Conservative MP, you'll be thinking, what do we do now to try and claw back our position in the polls? Now, let's see what the Prime Minister actually comes out with. He's had a pretty good week. Aside from those two terrible by-election results, there's some glimmers of hope coming through. Inflation has started to fall properly, which we've been promised for ages was coming. That's actually started to happening. The illegal migration bill got passed. Mortgage rates have been going up recently. They started to fall again. There have been a few other things starting to come good. So part of him will be wanting to say, let's just stand steady. Let's not panic. Let's not lose our nerve. Let's stick with the plan. But lots of people will be saying to him, you're going to need to do a bit more than that. Hence probably this briefing that we're seeing about him maybe going harder on stuff.
And Mark, what do you reckon about these claims in The Telegraph this morning that Cabinet ministers are urging the PM to ditch net zero pledges, obviously looking at Uxbridge and them clinging on to that seat there, being anti-ULEZ? Do you think that that decision is an environmental one for the people of Uxbridge, or do you think it's more a financial one in a cost of living crisis?
Everything that's coming through from every poll you see, every focus group you read about, and I think what we saw on Thursday in the by-elections is people are really hurting. People are really struggling to make ends meet. And for me, everything I've read suggests that the vote in Uxbridge was about the cost of ULEZ. Everyone wants clean air. Everyone wants a better environment. People are generally, when you talk to them, really pro-net zero. They want to tackle climate change. It's a really important priority for people. But how we get there and how that hits people's pockets is going to be really important. The number one issue for voters right now is the cost of living. It doesn't matter what they say they care about longer term. They're looking at their budgets each month and thinking, how do we make ends meet? So the government, the Prime Minister, everyone's going to be thinking about how do they reduce the pressure on people's pockets, whether that's getting wages up or the cost of living down.
They've got to be careful a little bit, though, not to be the nasty party again. I mean, with this look of, I go back to the word divisive, which just strikes me as very odd. But looking at immigration and crime, well, we know they're big concerns and people want to see things done. Trans rights as well. I mean, that's just a lowest common denominator, easy target, isn't it? Which raises no... There are questions about that, with the moral aspect of that, if they're just going to start attacking that because you think it's an easy vote winner.
There are always going to be tensions within any ruling party because they're broad churches. And like you said, crime, immigration, they're really, really pertinent for people. Stuff around transgender rights, it's more of an issue amongst around young people. So obviously my background is education. This week, the government announced that it was going to delay bringing in guidance for schools about how to deal with trans pupils and stuff like that. People who care about those issues really care about those issues. The challenge for the Prime Minister, as you said, is how do you reassure people that are worrying about crime, immigration, cultural issues and stuff like that, without coming across as the nasty party, and also without upsetting your own coalition. There'll be lots of voters out there that just focus on the cost of living. There'll be others that are really worried about these cultural issues, but on both sides. So if he goes too hard in one way, he might alienate voters in the other way. So he's got a really difficult balance to get. That said, Rishi is, by all accounts, quite a nice guy. He's very moderate in his approach to things. So if he goes about this in the right way, he might be able to find that sweet spot. But as you said, it's going to be really tricky to get that balance right.
And Mark, how do you think this leaves the Labour Party and the Lib Dems? What will they be thinking now with about 12 months to go until the next general election? I mean, Keir Starmer says this is a cry for change from the British people, and Sir Ed Davey yesterday saying that the Lib Dems are back in the West Country.
I mean, listen, it was great news for Labour, great news for the Lib Dems. They played those by-elections absolutely brilliantly. So if I was a Liberal Democrat, I'd be thinking, let's have more of this, please. And hopefully they'll be seeing the result for them down in Somerton as an opportunity to get back not just into the southwest, but all the other places where they used to be competitive. And for Labour, there's two things I think to take away from that. One is that lots of people really are grumpy at the government and looking for an alternative. But as we saw in Uxbridge, they haven't yet decided they definitely want to vote for Labour in every opportunity. So let's see what happens. But steady as she goes, probably for Labour. They must be feeling very, very confident.
OK, Mark, good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Just wonder whether there's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, in a way. And I never think knee-jerk reactions are the right way forward.
But it was funny yesterday, but also to be expected, that all three parties were celebrating in their own ways.
In their own ways, yeah.
Yeah, the Tories were very happy in Uxbridge, outskirts of London. Labour were very, very happy up in Selby. And then you had the Lib Dems with their cannon. Did you see that?
They had a cannon?
They had a big yellow cannon that they took a blue match to, and then somebody
Really?
let out glitter out of the cannon. Oh, it was like a parade through the streets. We can see some pictures now of the parade through the streets. It really was a victory lap
It's,
for the Lib Dems.
yeah, well, one lady's clapping, anyway. I mean, it's just... it's all so staged. I mean, I'm turning into a cynical old devil, but it's stuff like that is so staged, and it's purely done for the cameras.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not a criticism of Ed Davey or the Lib Dems. It's whatever party is doing stuff. I mean, the Tories and the Labour Party did similar things yesterday, though not involving cannons and marches.
Yeah.
So as I'm aware.
Very excited.
It's just so fake. And do we actually believe any of that absolute nonsense now?
Well, for the Lib Dems, they've been saved from almost total wipeout, really, in the past 10 years, haven't they? So
Well, they've only got one more seat.
Well, they might think that that things are on the up for them now.
Well,
You can understand that excitement.
well, you can to an extent, but when you're at the bottom, there's only one direction you can go in. To be fair, I mean, they got absolutely wiped out, didn't they, 8 years ago? So it's, I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see what happens, though. Sir Ed Davey seems to think they can sweep up in the West Country. Do you think that's right? Do you agree with him? Do let us know. gbnews@gbnews.com.
I don't know what the Lib Dems stand for at the minute. I'm not really sure what their policies are on anything at the minute, because they've been so quiet the last couple of years.
I was just thinking that.
So they need to really step up their game, actually, ahead of the general election. We need to know what they're actually offering, because I have no idea.
Cannons. And glitter.
Cannons. Glitter cannons. Well, that'd get them a few votes.
Well, they might come up with some ideas now. Got some wind in their sails.
Maybe.
See?
Maybe. Anyway, if you've got any thoughts on any of that, gbviews@gbnews.com. If you're a staunch Liberal Democrat and you can tell us what they're doing, let us know. I'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, let's have a look at the weather.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A damp and breezy start for many of us, feeling cool today under the wind and rain. But northern Scotland, the place to be if you fancy sunny skies. It is a bright start here, a cool start, but actually those sunny spells in the north and northwest of Scotland continuing into the afternoon. 1 or 2 showers for parts of Aberdeenshire, Caithness, Sutherland, as well as Shetland and Orkney. A drier start for southeast England. Not much rain moving in here, actually. Just light rain on and off by the afternoon. Elsewhere, it is spells of rain. A strengthening breeze, especially around southwest coast, making it feel cool. 16 to 18 Celsius at best. Some places lower, where we've got the persistent wet weather. And further persistent bands of rain move through during Saturday evening. Much of it by midnight moving out into the North Sea, but it stays damp and cloudy. A lot of low cloud around for England and Wales overnight, as well as southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, and as a result, it's going to be a relatively mild night, 16 Celsius in places by dawn, but it's still breezy in the south. As we start off Sunday, it's a slow start with the cloud eventually lifting and breaking. Sunny spells giving way to showers in southern parts. Central areas, northern England, southern Scotland, North Wales, seeing persistent bands of rain once again. Scotland, a cloudier day, but actually brightening up later with 1 or 2 showers in the far north. Cool in the far north, warmer towards the south.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
6:22. We had a right good gossip in that break, didn't we?
We did. We always do.
Yeah, but honestly, it's lovely.
Yeah.
Just to have a little catch-up, what we've done, what we're up to.
This is the nice thing about working with friends. It doesn't feel like work.
No, it doesn't.
We just sit back here, we have a nice little catch-up, don't we?
We do, yes.
Well, you've got to think, it's a Saturday. Is it Saturday?
It is, yes.
It's Saturday, so I lose track of the days, you see.
But it's like, you know, we're just all friends, like we
Yeah.
are with you. It's lovely.
Lovely. Yeah, so it's a Saturday, so it's good to have a little chit-chat.
Yeah. And actually, Esme's been in touch. Hi, Esme. Talking about all these, because obviously the strikes go on, the doctors' strike, consultants, all that. Actually, the consultant strike ends this morning, doesn't it? But anyway, Esme says, I'm due to have a new hip later this month in Hale. She's now booked in on Monday because of a cancellation. The NHS staff have been marvellous, and I can't wait. A bit of a whirl to get organised, but I wasn't going to turn down this chance. Should be up and mobile by Tuesday. The NHS at its best, and I'm truly thankful. So you're one of the lucky ones, Esme, as far as that goes. And actually, one of our viewers messaged me on Instagram saying she's just had a hip op. I'm like a hip surgery specialist on all of this, aren't I? And I can't find...
Well, Esme, good luck. Good luck. We're thinking of you. Hopefully Monday goes really well and you're up and about and on your feet on Tuesday. Hopefully it changes your life, really, because it'll be really difficult to answer whilst you're on that waiting list for a hip-hop.
Yes, Maggie.
Maggie,
who should be watching today. She's just got out of hospital, very sore and bruised, but looking forward to getting up and about on her feet.
Oh, well, best of luck to you as well, Maggie. And thank you so much for getting in touch. Please do keep your emails coming in and your views as well on any of the stories that we're talking about this morning. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Now, to more serious matters. That gets you go. Immigration. A total of 3,000 illegal immigrants could be housed on the Bibi Stockholm. That's that barge that we've all been talking about, and in former military sites by as early as this autumn.
Well, the Home Office has said accommodation will be provided in ex-military bases such as Wethersfield in Essex and Scampton in Lincolnshire.
Well, let's talk to the former Chief Immigration Officer for Border Force at Calais, Kevin Saunders. Morning to you, Kevin. Good to see you, as always. The government seems determined to move ahead with these plans, despite a lot of local opposition. I mean, it might not be nice for people in these areas, but is this all a necessary move?
Good morning. Yes, unfortunately, it's very necessary. We need to get people out of hotels. Hotels are very expensive, and really they're not designed to have people in them for long term and that sort of thing. So getting people onto the barge in the southwest will be a really good move. I believe they had a sort of press day yesterday where you people from the press got a chance to go and have a look, and it doesn't look too bad. I mean, it's not 5-star, but at the end of the day, it doesn't look too bad at all. So, yeah, good move by the government.
Yeah, our very own Mark White was talking about this yesterday, as you say, at that press day. It does look like he described it as student halls, so basic, but very, very functional and fine, as you say, Kevin. But this is the issue, isn't it? Because we do need to reduce the use of hotels, costing the taxpayer £6 million a day, but nobody wants this sort of accommodation in their local area, do they? We've seen the protests in Portland at the Bibi Stockholm barge. Where do you think this is going? Do you think we will see the use of barges up and down the country, or do you think it will be military bases that we'll see illegal immigrants being housed in?
I think it will be a combination of both. I know that the government were looking at cruise liners as well, but there came a problem with berthing them in ports. I'm sure the government, I'm sure the Home Office will get round that somehow. They've got some very good people there who know what they're doing. So, yeah, I think it will be a combination of bases and cruise liners.
The problem with all of this, though, Kevin, is it seems to be sticking plaster solutions to all of this. It doesn't do anything to speed up the process of what's the word I'm looking for? Processing these people when they come to the country. It's not doing anything to stop people getting into this country. On the French side, it's not processing legal migration routes on the French side. It all just seems to be sort of temporary measures and not getting to the fundamentals of the issue.
Yes, you're quite right. It is. We're shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted to some extent. We need an agreement with the French to actually stop the people on the water, on the channel, but the French won't agree to that. But we've been trying to get an agreement with the French to do something since 1066, and you never win with the French. They will never agree to anything that is not in their direct national interest, and they don't believe that putting a very effective navy onto the channel to be in their interests. And you can understand that to a certain extent. France has got a migrant problem, and being seen to help the Brits out isn't going to win Macron any votes in northern France. So they'll go on the beaches, but that's all. And we've seen this week, getting on for 1,000 people coming across the channel. This month, getting on for 1,000 people coming across the channel. So it's not going to go away anywhere any day soon, unfortunately.
And Kevin, we've seen 2 by-election defeats for the Tories this week. Rishi Sunak will be aware that he's got about 12 months, really, to make some serious progress and get some results, really, on those 5 key pledges, the main one being to stop the boats. And the main policy so far has been Rwanda, and we haven't seen a single flight take off. I mean, where does he go from here?
Well, you're right in that Rwanda is the key to all of this. The government are very hopeful that they will get the right result in the Supreme Court, and if they do, the flights will start, almost the next day to Rwanda, and that I think will be the big bonus for the government. Of course, if it fails, then goodness knows what happens. But Rwanda is the key to all of this.
Kevin, as always, really good to see you this morning. Thank you so much for your analysis.
If you've got thoughts, well, I know you've got thoughts on that. GBviews at gbnews.com. It's the whole getting to the nub of it all, isn't it, actually?
You are quite right, though, that it is a sticking plaster.
Well,
and it doesn't make processing any quicker, does it?
Which is taking years. Years. It's meant to take 6 weeks or something, or 2 months. It's just not happening.
And no wonder it costs so much if it takes that long to process, because you've got to house people who can't work or earn their own money in that time. So you will have an opinion on that. Do keep them coming in. gbviews at gbnews.com.
Now we've got all the headlines in Saturday's papers heading your way. This is Breakfast on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 6:33. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
And let's take a look at today's newspapers for you now. And the Eye Weekend says Tory insiders fear they could lose up to 150 MPs in the next general election.
The Times says Rishi Sunak plans to use more assertive strategies to curb Labour's poll lead.
The Daily Express says the Prime Minister is determined to intensify his plans and win the next general election.
I mean, that's a bit obvious, isn't it?
A little bit,
all politicians want to win the next general election.
I'd be concerned if he didn't.
Well, quite right. The Telegraph reports that senior Tories putting pressure on the PM to change eco-policy, drive to net zero. It's a big thing on that. Whether that's going to be enough to try and win them a few votes back, I don't know.
And is that the right way to go?
I don't know.
Or should it be more...
I don't think it's that obvious.
Fiscal policy. Well, I think the ULEZ thing is people trying to save money, not anything to do with the environment. But do let us know. gbviews@gbnews.com. But going through the papers this morning is radio and television broadcaster David Hamilton and writer and journalist Emma Wolfe. Really good to see you both this morning. David, we'll start with you, shall we?
How are you? Morning.
Good
morning.
Triple by-elections in The Guardian. According to Keir Starmer, it's a cry for change.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we've all heard the results. Huge Labour victory in Selby and Ainsty. Lib Dems winning in Somerton and Frome. Tories a narrow victory in Uxbridge, probably helped by the ULEZ effect, I think. I think their best hope seems to be London. And Keir Starmer was asked if he would persuade the London mayor to reverse his decision. And several times he said the same word. I can't remember what it was. I think it was, we'll review it or something like that. So he never actually answered that. But, I mean, I think London really seems to be their best bet. This is so unpopular. This spread of ULEZ across London. But the rest of it, I mean, new policies, what are they going to do? They seem to have tried everything. I think their best hope is that the economy improves, in which case they may be lucky.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will absolutely come down to the economy. Across the papers, you see them, you know, these kind of panicky strategies. As you say, first of all, cut all our net zero pledges. That's what people care about. And then they're talking about, let's find some divisive policies that we can attack Labour on. Let's talk about crime. Let's talk about immigration. Let's talk about the votes. Let's talk about gender issues. It doesn't feel like a concerted, calm, you know, Conservative party with core principles, core values, and a party that knows what they're offering the country. And if we don't know what they're offering the country, you know, I don't think that they have a clue. There are also predictions of real wipeout, you know, 150 MPs, up to 150, set to lose their seats at the next election. So I think there must be
in the great scheme of things, though, that's not too bad, is it? 150 out? I mean, I know it's a big hit, but it could be worse. It could be a lot worse.
Yeah, but for example, the Selby, that was the second biggest by-election defeat since 1945. For the Tories.
Yeah.
So this stuff really does matter. The Uxbridge majority was slashed from, 7,000 to 495. So, I mean, these are really, really significant. And I think the mood in the Conservative Party is at rock bottom. I think, you know, Rishi Sunak is desperately trying to seize the initiative 8 months after he came to power.
But as you pointed out in the Telegraph, you know, net zero is one of these things which is targeted. And I don't know... I know it's unpopular with a lot of voters. I don't know if scrapping it is going to actually make that much difference.
I think you're absolutely right. I think this is a knee-jerk thing about reacting to ULEZ, reacting to Uxbridge, which is quite a specific instance. It's quite a specifically London-centric issue at the moment, ULEZ, although I know there are other schemes around the country. And so I think the Tory ministers are basically looking... They say they're looking for other green wedge issues, but I'm not sure that's what people are really talking about on the doorstep.
No.
Green issues. I mean... Yes, you know, there's lots of controversy surrounding climate change and green, green issues. But I'm not sure that's going to be the thing that they're trying to peel voters away from Labour.
No.
I think it comes down to the economy. I think it'll be how people are feeling about the economy. And at the moment, inflation is still high and people are still feeling the pinch.
Yeah, I have to say, we don't talk about net zero down the pub.
No.
You talk about the price of Marmite.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Rates,
and prices coming down and, just something to cheer us up. That's what we need. I think, you see this, don't you? I mean, I don't know much about politics at all. I'm just a punter. But it seems to me that, governments... They have a sell-by date, don't they? And this one, they've been there for a long time. They haven't fixed anything. We're tired of them. We want a change. We're not terribly impressed by Keir Starmer and Labour and what they've offered up until now. But I think people just vote for change,
or don't vote at all. I'm hearing from many Conservative Party voters who say, do you know what? I don't know who to vote for at the next election and I won't bother.
Which is the biggest nightmare for Keir Starmer, because that could very likely see him get in but it'd be a one-term wonder. If the Tories can reform themselves in opposition, then those people might go back to the Tory, but then suddenly find himself outnumbered.
Yeah, but I think people who feel committed to getting Labour in will go and vote. But I'm talking about the right, not really knowing what to do, you know.
But that's the thing.
And I think if we feel like this, if there's this lack of direction and enthusiasm in summer, I think another hard winter with all the fuel bills and all of that and people really feeling the pinch, I think that it's going to be really tough next year.
But it could be hung Parliament territory, couldn't it?
I think you have to have change from time to time, but I am old enough to remember Labour governments, and a lot of it wasn't great. That I remember, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if this government or the next government brings in a mansion tax, and I think people will be surprised to find that a lot of them live in what is described as a mansion. I think it will affect a lot more people than they realise. So I would watch out for that one, definitely.
OK, let's have a look at the Telegraph and the right to bank. This whole banking issue, David.
Yes, exactly. Well, Boris Johnson, the Telegraph have the story, but Boris actually writes for the Mail, has a column now in the Mail, in which he said that the chief executive of NatWest, who also have Coots, of course, should resign if she leaked details of Nigel Farage's bank account to the BBC. It seems incredible, doesn't it, that banks decide whether we should have an account or not, depending on our political views. I think actually they're very lucky to have our money, and if I was banking with NatWest, I would be inclined to take it somewhere else. The only problem is that's a very complicated process, moving your money from one bank to another. You've got all your, your standing orders and things like that. If you have no bank account, I mean, you could be in a situation like that. You're absolutely stuffed because everybody now is easing out cash. So you have to have a bank account. So what do you do if banks say, I don't want you?
Well, exactly. I mean, it's
you need a bank account.
It really is. And where does this end? I think this is really insidious, what's happened to Nigel, and whether, we don't know all the full facts, and we don't know whether details of his bank accounts, that's really personal, sensitive information. We don't know whether details of that were leaked by the NatWest boss. And this is Boris being a little bit naughty, saying, if she's broken the rules, she needs to go. Go if you bent the rules.
But she
to which some people might say pot calling kettle black, but anyway. But he did go. He did go.
But, I mean, to be fair, no, we don't know where this was leaked from, but some information about his bank accounts was leaked to the BBC.
And a lot of documents.
The man who reported it was sat next to this boss of the NatWest Group
Simon
the
Jack.
night before.
Yeah, Simon Jack.
Well, I mean...
And also, even just from the Telegraph documents that have been leaked, we know that they've made decisions about his bank account based on whether his views aligned with their values. And frankly, I don't want my bank judging me for something I've said on social media or something I've said on television. I don't want my electricity company or my water company saying, oh, we're withdrawing our services as well because you're a racist or a fascist. We've all been called ridiculous things. What is this about having our views aligning with their values? Since when was that a thing?
Yeah.
I think it's really, really...
How dare they? Yeah. They're very, very lucky to have our money, no matter how little it is.
Well, you can't exist in
What, you don't bank with Coots? Oh, darling.
But you can't exist in today's society without a bank account.
Yeah, look,
I
don't think...
anybody...
Yeah, Nigel wasn't actually going to be completely stateless without a bank account, running around trying to get someone to take his fibres.
But 9 different banks rejected him, so it is... I think anywhere you sit on the political spectrum, you should be very, very concerned about that whole situation. Hopefully we get some clarity now. Emma, let's go to the Mail, shall we? The front page, actually, on many of the papers this morning. Prince George celebrating his 10th birthday.
Yeah, isn't that lovely? My little boy just celebrated his 3rd birthday.
Oh, happy
and doesn't the time go fast? Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful photo. They've got a lovely... The Mail have got a lovely montage of George through the years at the age of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. And he just looks so... I think he looks so like William.
He does, doesn't he?
Really astonishing, the way it all comes through in families. But, yeah, so this is George, the future king, reaching 10 years old. I mean, I really do remember quite vividly when Kate was having her first baby. And everyone was camped outside the hospital, and that was that. Yeah,
it was so
gone
exciting,
in a flash,
wasn't it? So
yeah,
exciting.
Very exciting.
And it was taken in Windsor, wasn't it?
It was the first proper royal birth, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, God,
of the young lot.
Of the the
young'uns.
Yeah. What do you reckon, David? Does it make you feel nostalgic looking back at Prince George? at 10.
Is he the one who's not going to go into the military? His parents have said he doesn't have to go into the military, breaking the tradition. Yeah, I think it's a good thing that he has the choice of that. But he was very well behaved at Wimbledon, wasn't he? You know, I mean, for a young boy like that to be sitting there all that time, yeah, he's a good boy, isn't he?
They're astonishingly well-behaved children. Those children that sit through those carriage rides. Yeah, I know they sometimes pull the odd...
I don't know about Louis.
Well, young Louis, I know he's pulled the odd face and sticks his tongue out, but my goodness, most toddlers... Well, he's 5, I think, now, but most toddlers would be kicking off at ceremonies like that. Those children are ridiculously well-behaved, those 3.
But he's a spare, isn't he? He's going to be a spare.
So he'll have fun.
There's always
and
trouble with the spare.
Isn't there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Isn't there just?
Go back to Princess Margaret and look at that.
But no, it's a lovely picture.
Yeah.
Lovely picture. Happy birthday to him.
Yeah, happy birthday.
David. Now, this one, I've glimpsed it on the front of the Star. I haven't read the details, so tell me all.
Well, no,
why are we worried about E.T.?
I've only glimpsed at it as well, and I don't understand too much about it either. But a Pentagon chief has said we're facing potentially threatening alien technical surprises. So I don't know what he means by that. Do you think he means AI?
Is this linked to President Biden's pronouncement on AI yesterday? He was going to make a speech about AI, and the response online was hilarious. People were just saying, I mean, look, here's a guy in his 80s who can barely string 2 words, but, you know, apparently can't remember his own name and all of that, all the jokes about him being incredibly doddery. And then the idea that he was going to make some earth-shattering kind of pronouncements about artificial intelligence. So I'm wondering whether the Pentagon chief is reacting to... or is as
Can I just say something about Biden and all these references to him being doddery? He's actually about 5 years younger than me, and I find it very offensive that somebody of my age and his age is referred to as
but not
doddery.
not everybody is. You can be absolutely sharp as a tack in your 90s. Or
well,
you
look
could
at,
be
look
doddery
at Tony
in your 70s.
Bennett,
I didn't exactly.
who we'll probably talk about later.
I didn't mean
he
it
did his
as
last
in...
concert at 95.
Yeah.
And remembered all the words.
But it is. I mean, people do age differently, and I have to say, I worry about quite how we refer to President Biden in a way. But he's clearly not as sharp as we would like.
No,
put it that way.
Well, you could have
a leader of the free
You could have a
world.
wonderful tape of his outtakes, couldn't you, and his cock-ups and things that he said. But you know, I think I just don't like that sort of ageist thing that somebody of that age is always referred to as doddery.
Yeah.
I might be diddery. but hopefully not doddery.
Certainly diddy, if nothing else. If nothing else.
Exactly.
Emma, let's have a look at the mirror and the Lionesses.
Excitement, great excitement. Let's all get behind women's sport.
Not feeling it, no.
The World Cup kicks off. And if you want to watch it in Australia, you need to be up watching at 10:30. People are saying, get up early and watch it. That's not early. Watching it on your sofa at 10:30 in the morning.
You do have a child.
We've done half your day.
Up early on a Saturday.
No, just work.
Oh, work.
But yeah, it's our opening game against Haiti. The tournament's happening in Australia. So this is, I think, the opening game is in Brisbane. And is she Serena Wiegman? The boss. Yeah, she's been talking about how we can, you know, repeat our glory of last year and really go all the way. So. Lots of excitement. I think it's brilliant that...
Have you heard their anthem?
No.
Yeah, I played it on my radio show yesterday, and I had an article about it in the Mail. I think it's very, very good. It's Hope FC, and it's 11 female voices, 11 as in a team. And I think it's the best anthem that's come out for a long time, you know, since the, you know, Baddiel and Skinner and those. It's not quite as rousing as that, but I think it captures the spirit. And I think when people start singing it at stadiums, I think it's going to be a winner, and I hope the girls are as well. I think this, you know, we need something to cheer us up.
We do.
And whereas the men, you know, I always thought the old thing, you know, football's a man's game, but I don't believe that now. I think it's actually now really caught on, and I think, you know, the sentiment behind the Lionesses. I'm definitely going to go home and watch it after our show.
Good.
Well, it's the women that are bringing home the silverware, David.
Yeah,
so
I hope
there's more than we can say about the men.
And I tell you what, though, as well, when it comes to women doing things right, if they get the anthem right as well, as you say, then it might help us recover from the shame that was whatever. What was the one years ago that had John Barnes rapping in the middle of it? Do you remember?
Yeah, as a rapper, he was a great footballer, wasn't he?
Yeah, but terrible rapper.
I think this one will do a lot better. The only problem with the team is they've got a lot of injuries, and it's not exactly the same team as last year. But still, fingers crossed, plenty of talent there. Go, girls.
There you go. There you go. Lovely stuff. Emma, David, thank you. We'll see you both a little bit later on.
We'll have to listen to that now. Next ad break, we'll put that on.
All right,
we'll let you know what we think.
Let's go through one or two other headlines for you this morning. At 6:49, and supermarkets have more than doubled their margins on fuel since the invasion of Ukraine. That's according to the RAC. It says Asda, Tesco, Morrison and Sainsbury's were making an average of about 4.7p a litre on fuel sales when the war began in February last year. It's now increased to about 10p a litre, which of course is pushing fuel prices.
Staff turnover in NHS cancer services has seen a significant rise, with more than 4,000 people leaving the workforce last year. New figures from NHS England show the leaver rate for the cancer workforce in hospital and community health services hit 12.1% in the year of September 2022.
And a range of measures to tackle disparities in healthcare for women has been launched by the government. Ministers have forked out $25 million to women's health hubs to support health at every stage of life. A new area on the NHS website will bring together more than 100 topics for girls and women to access information easily.
Now, joining us this morning is our showbiz queen, Stephanie Tetchy. Good morning. And some sad news to start.
The formidable Tony Bennett. You know, we use the word music icon quite a lot in the business, but he truly was an icon. His agent released a statement yesterday saying Tony left us today, but he was still singing the other day at his piano, and his last song was Because of You, and that was his first hit. And Ellie and Stephen, that first hit was released in 1951 when he was 24, and his last album was when he, in 2021, at the age of 95. Wow. So that just goes to show the span of a music career this man has had.
See, what I quite like about Tony, I mean, he's got a beautiful voice. I mean, it's so sort of chilled and iconic.
Yeah.
But it's also the fact he always worked with people.
Yeah.
Throughout different generations.
Yes.
I mean, K.D. Lang, he did stuff with. Gaga.
Ella Fitzgerald.
Did he do stuff with
He
Ella?
done with stuff with Ella Fitzgerald.
Oh,
Come on,
wow.
that is going back. He done stuff with
Stephen loves Ella.
Frank Sinatra. And Frank Sinatra, even though he's one of the greatest, he said that Tony Bennett was the best singer in the business. So this is the kind of voice that we are now going to miss. And the stats are just incredible. 50 million records sold, 70 albums released, 20 Grammys won, all after the age of 60. And he just stopped performing at the age of 95, so he still was passionate about it. It's been undisclosed what he died from, but he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2016, which he didn't make publicly known until 2021, but he was still singing. It's just fascinating that he had Alzheimer's, but he still remembered his songs and he still sang with much life. As you can imagine, the tributes have been pouring in. President Joe Biden said for more than 70 years, Tony Bennett didn't just sing the classics, himself was an American classic. Elton John said he was sad to hear of Tony's passing, and he said he was without the doubt the classiest singer.
That's the thing, he had class.
He did. He's just, there's something so sophisticated about him, and he was one of the few artists that managed to make jazz span across the generations, as we said. Like, he released an album, Love for Sale, with Lady Gaga just in 2021, which introduced him to a new audience. He actually done the final recording with Amy Winehouse as well before she died as well. So he had this knack for working with both new talent and classic talent, and he will be sorely missed in the music industry. It was a very sad day yesterday.
And what a legacy as well. I mean, all those songs, those hits, will just be sung for decades. Yeah, decades and decades to come.
And he had this way where, you know, we talk about the Great American Songbook, and he was just a great interpreter of that. He just could get songs which weren't even his own and spin it in a way that you would just love, and it would just be so effortlessly. And you would think he was the writer of the song, but he wasn't.
Voice like butter.
I know. I was listening to him this morning, so R.I.P. Tony Bennett.
Now, Watership Down. Talking of classics, what's going on with Watership Down?
Well, a lot of film buffs were emailing me yesterday. Like, Steph, you have to talk about this on GB tomorrow. Watership Down is a 1978 animated classic about rabbits who leave their burrow in search for a new home. But the British Board of Film Classification have changed it now to parental guidance, because they're saying they're keeping it up to society's standards of today. They say it features mild violence, a few expletives. So they've changed. Yeah, they've changed it. It's available.
It's traumatising.
That's what they said. Rabbits, violence, and you just think, how far are we going to go with this these days?
I do agree with this, Steph. I do think it's very. Yeah, I remember being very traumatised by this.
Oh my gosh!
I would highly recommend parental guidance on this
they've
one.
changed it. So they've done that for societal standards. I always think, how do they make these decisions? But the board, they have compliance officers who every day watch all films, programmes. So that's why.
Job.
Yeah, I know. Can you imagine being there just watching and be like, nope, that's got to change? So
I'd love that as a job.
I would love that too, actually. Just
Fetch
be
me a
eating
coffee,
popcorn all day, chilling,
lounge
some
about.
champagne, sorted. So that's changed along with the original Star Trek as well, featuring William Shatner. So that is
Star Trek: The Motion Picture?
Yes, 1979.
What's that gone
That was
to?
a PG. Now that was Universal. Now it's gone to PG, and it says it's got brief, mild horror and sex references.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
So we need to be careful. Your favourite film might be getting changed soon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything about that Star Trek. Oh, dear me, I don't know. Steph, thank you very much indeed. We'll see you later on.
Thanks, Steph.
Oh, dear. Let us know what you think about all of that, of course. Usual ways, you know how to get in touch. gbviews@gbnews.com. Let's see what the weather's going to do for you.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A damp and breezy start for many of us, feeling cool today under the wind and rain. But northern Scotland, the place to be if you fancy sunny skies. It is a bright start here, a cool start, but actually those sunny spells in the north and northwest of Scotland continuing into the afternoon. 1 or 2 showers for parts of Aberdeenshire, Caithness, Sutherland, as well as Shetland and Orkney. A drier start for southeast England. Not much rain moving in here, actually, just light rain on and off by the afternoon. Elsewhere, it is spells of rain, a strengthening breeze, especially around southwest coast, making it feel cool. 16 to 18 Celsius at best. Some places lower where we've got the persistent wet weather. And further persistent bands of rain move through during Saturday evening. Much of it by midnight moving out into the North Sea, but it stays damp and cloudy. A lot of low cloud around for England and Wales overnight, as well as southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, and as a result it's going to be a relatively mild night, 16 Celsius in places by dawn, but it's still breezy in the south. As we start off Sunday, it's a slow start with the cloud eventually lifting and breaking. Sunny spells giving way to showers in southern parts. Central areas, northern England, southern Scotland, North Wales, seeing persistent bands of rain once again. Scotland, a cloudier day, but actually brightening up later with 1 or 2 showers in the far north. Cool in the far north, warmer towards the south.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my new show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m, where real people get to meet those in power and hold them to account. Every week, we'll be hearing your views from up and down the country in the real world. Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, 7 o'clock, Saturday the 22nd of July. Today, there's a surge in getaways, I'm afraid. More than 2 million holidaymakers trying to head overseas this weekend, millions more on the roads. Is it going to be a smooth journey? Probably not.
The Conservatives need to claw back support after their by-election defeats. Is ditching net zero the way to do it?
Lionesses ready to roar as the Women's World Cup kicks off down under. Well, kicks off for them at least. They're going up against Haiti later this morning.
And what's happening weather-wise today?
It's a damp start for many of us, but will it be a weekend washout, or is there any brighter weather on the horizon? I'll have the full forecast coming up soon.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News. Have you noticed your beans are getting more watery? Because I have.
Have you?
Yep.
You see, I
Very
do.
watery beans on my toast.
Oh, you see, I do like my baked beans.
Me too.
What's going on?
Well, we've been had. Do you like what I did there? Page 3 of The Sun. Alongside what you usually find on page 3 of The Sun, there's this story about Heinz. We all know Heinz. It has to be Heinz, they say at least. They're cutting back their contents, but they are upping the price. Apparently, half of the can, 50% of the can, is now liquid.
Well, you've got to have plenty of sauce.
But that's ridiculous.
Does this sound outrageous? Are you outraged?
The first time ever, half of the tinned contents are now liquid, but the price has risen from £1 a can to £1.40 a can in the last year.
Now, you see how this makes an exciting headline? We're being ripped off. Heinz are cutting back the beans in the tin, you know. Details.
Details.
Devil's in the details. How many beans less how many hundreds of beans do you get in a tin of beans?
Oh,
so how many fewer beans do you get now in a tin?
I'd say you get 500 beans in a can.
Right.
And I reckon you get...
You've seen this already, haven't you?
50 less.
You get 10 beans less.
I don't believe that.
See, 10 beans, that's a forkful.
It is.
So is it really worth getting our knickers in a twist over?
I think
so.
I think it makes a real difference. A real difference
10 beans.
to your breakfast. I think it does. Yeah, you got to. I love beans. I would say, actually, the centre point of the breakfast is the baked beans. Controversial, I know.
You...
But it's how I feel.
You see, this is how we get worked up, though, don't we? Because it all sounds terrible. 10 beans.
Yeah.
Would you really notice?
But the price increase, that is bad now, you've got to admit that.
Well, that's bad.
Up 40p, and you're getting less of it. Which
Yes.
is what we're seeing across the board, aren't we?
Well, we are.
Shrinkflation, people. Shrinkflation. It's real. Do get in touch with what you've noticed. Have you noticed it in your beans or perhaps in another food product? TVViews at tvnews.com. This is the stuff that gets my goat.
It does, doesn't it? She's obsessed with food.
I am.
Did you have a smaller pizza last night?
I didn't know. I only managed... We both had Domino's last night because we're so in sync. Look,
We did.
we're both wearing purple.
And I'm on a diet.
I know.
But anyway, it all went to the wind.
He had a cheat day, but I told him that's very good for your metabolism. You have to give it a shock every now and again.
Oh, it's got a shock, all right. One large stuffed crust plus a garlic bread, shock. I mean, I'm surprised I can walk this morning.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same. See, I only managed half of mine, but I did have 3 cookies alongside it. So we both had a cheat day last night. We're feeling it this morning, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're regretting our actions.
If you're a type 1 diabetic, just don't do it. It's not worth the pain the next morning.
No. I'm learning lots here about glucose and
levels.
insulin levels.
I've had enough insulin this morning to literally down an elephant. And my bloods are still high.
Still sky high.
So it's...
Would you say worth it? Did you enjoy your pizza that much?
Yeah, it's really nice.
Oh, good. Well, there you go. There you go.
So, there you go.
That was our Friday night.
But I may not survive till the end of the programme.
No, you have to stay with me.
So, got an ambulance on standby.
Yeah. If he goes off the side of his chair.
Mind you, I wouldn't want to get on the roads this morning. I mean, it's going to be bad enough driving home from this, to be honest, because it normally takes about an hour and a half. I reckon 2.5 hours today to get home because, well, everyone's getting away. And in fact, they reckon sort of 13, 14 million people on the roads, 2 million trying to get overseas this weekend. It is going to be the busiest day for travel, according to ABTA.
Well, the ongoing rail strikes, the airport queues and delays at the port of Dover, they could potentially make those journeys anything but pleasant.
Let's see what's happening in Scotland, should we? Our reporter Tony Maguire is standing by. Morning, Tony. Glasgow Airport, I see. What's happening there?
Good morning, you two. Certainly it's starting to get a wee bit busier. I arrived about 15 minutes ago and already I would say that this hall has probably grown in about 3 times the number of passengers getting excited for that summer getaway. This is going to be the busiest day of travel this summer, according to ABTA, with some 2 million Brits expected to leave the country to blue skies and a nice, hopefully, cold glass of sangria at the other side. Certainly, the real question is whether or not all these looming strikes are really teeing us up for yet another summer of discontent. Now, this weekend, if you have travel plans, then the truth is that you're going to be okay, except from a few long queues at the airport, which, let's face it, we're British, is to be expected. You'll be absolutely fine. However, from next weekend, we still have a few airports who are looking to enact some industrial action. So certainly Luton, a week yesterday, so Friday the 28th, and then the following Tuesday, and then Gatwick have taken in a couple of weekends, also next weekend and the weekend after. So if the real message there is if you're flying this weekend, then congratulations and you won a watch. So as I said, 2 million Brits expected to jet off from the UK this weekend. Glasgow Airport here, about 27,000 a day will leave from here, and even from Manchester we heard as many as 200,000 this weekend as well. So right across, with the schools going out in England and Wales yesterday, that's why we're seeing this real burst this weekend. Now, of course, Scottish schools, they wrapped up for the summer at the end of June. So in essence, we've kind of had our midsummer rush at the beginning of the school holidays. However, what that has done is it's freed up some of the Scottish airports. So according to Glasgow Airport, we're seeing quite a lot of English families coming up to fly out from here via Gatwick or Heathrow or what have you. And of course, one of the key things, the key stories, in fact, for all of us in the last year has been cost of living. And unfortunately, that story seems to be following people right across the world, no matter where it is that they're going. We're seeing now that the average cost of sundries and day-to-days, whether it's food and drinks or suntan lotion, in most places around Europe especially, that's going up year on year. However, apparently the cheapest holidays this year are across Turkey, Bulgaria, and even the Algarve in Portugal. And then finally, really, the last kind of thing to say about travelling, that if you're going anywhere this weekend, then it looks like that you're going to have the best of the weather, because literally anywhere in the world looks to be better than it's going to be in Britain for the next couple of weeks. And certainly some people are forecasting as much as 2 months of rainfall in the space of that week. Now, the Met Office is telling us to prepare for a real washout. So if you're away to somewhere sunny, then make sure you make the most of it. But certainly in a couple of weeks, we'll be able to get back to complaining about the heat here in Britain again. So if it's not the rain, it's going to be the sunshine. But that's your kind of travel report, I guess, from this morning from Glasgow.
It was comprehensive. Tony, you are fabulous, and let's hope that we can get back to complaining about the heat. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Would be.
Thank you very much,
In the meantime,
Tony
see if you
Maguire.
can get yourself on a last-minute flight, Tony.
That's where you should be. You should be in Spain or something. That would be nice, wouldn't it? See what you can do for us,
Get yourself,
Tony.
yeah, and do some reporting from the Algarve.
That's where you should be.
I like that idea.
Yeah, he's game. Thanks, Tony.
Be wishing he's taking his passport with him now. Let's bring you up to date with some of the other stories. Should we do that? Some of the other stories this morning? No, we'll forget about that. We'll update you on those a little bit later on. Instead, let's talk about Rishi Sunak, set to launch an aggressive campaign to fight Labour's poll lead with policies on immigration, crime and trans rights, apparently. Comes after those two significant losses in those by-election results.
And according to The Telegraph, ministers have also urged the Prime Minister to ditch key net zero pledges. And that follows the unexpected win in Uxbridge, where ULEZ was weaponised against Labour.
Let's talk to our political reporter, Catherine Forster. Morning.
Good morning.
This sounds very knee-jerk to me, and I don't know if the public will respond to knee-jerk, will they?
Well, let's see if it actually happens, because I think ULEZ, OK, it was great that Rishi Sunak was able to say, look, we've had a win, this is fabulous. There were two very, very bad losses. And ULEZ, sure, that was, I would say, certainly, and nobody really is disputing that, what kept it Conservative. But is it about people not liking green policies, or is it about the financial cost of them? Now, apparently, people like Lord Frost on the right of the party writing in The Telegraph saying, this is proof that people want to drop this sort of green agenda. I'm not convinced that that's the case, but certainly there's pressure on the government to support people as we move to net zero, because it can be very expensive. So with the ULEZ, a lot of people that can't afford to buy a new car and can't afford £12.50 a day, in the middle of a cost of living crisis. So it may be that they row back on the ban on selling new petrol and diesel cars by 2030. Let's see. But I'm not convinced that sort of being less green is necessarily a big
But it's
vote
part
winner.
of the issue with ULEZ, and look, I might be totally off on this, but it's not, you say people don't mind the environmental side of it. Maybe not, but people don't like the big brother side of it, do they? I mean, it just seems like we're being monitored and checked, and
Yes.
and I drive through ULEZ zones, and you sort of think, well, I don't know if am I ULEZ compliant or not. I have no idea.
And also, of course, a lot of low-traffic neighbourhoods in London and elsewhere where they do seem to be trying to get people off the road. So I think, obviously, there's many millions of motorists, so there are potentially votes to be had there. But the Conservatives also looking at things like crime and migration to take a sort of harder, tougher line from the autumn to give themselves more of a dividing line with Labour. And, of course, Rishi Sunak did, having had some pretty awful weeks and the polls being really dreadful, have a few wins in the last week. I mean, Uxbridge, they clung on all right by less than 500 votes. But also, the illegal migration bill has finally got through Parliament. There was the news about the new battery plant, and inflation is beginning to come down. So some green shoots, but yeah, he's going to need to deliver on these 5 pledges, isn't he? And also, even if he does, there needs to be a more positive offering, doesn't there? Rather than just making things a bit less bad, making inflation a bit less bad, making waiting times a bit less bad. Where's the sort of positive offering?
Yeah.
Where do we think Labour and the Lib Dems are standing now? How are they feeling if we look at their kind of psyche, if you will? Because Labour did really, really well in Selby. I mean, fantastic result for them there. But you'd think, for all intents and purposes, they would have got Boris Johnson's old seat of Uxbridge and South Ruislip, but that didn't go their way. So will they be thinking, this isn't as easy as perhaps we thought? It's not entirely in the bag, then winning the next general election. And then the Lib Dems, I mean, Sir Ed Davies saying they're back in the West Country, and they had that big cannon yesterday and a big celebration.
Well, certainly, I think the Lib Dems absolutely cock a hoop. I mean, we saw it yesterday with the cannon, didn't we? And they obviously spy.
Here's the cannon.
Yeah, they love these stunts. They obviously spy a massive opportunity to get back and really win seats in places like the west, the southwest, sort of south of London that they used to be strong in. Of course, they're a small party, so they were able to throw all the resources at winning Somerton and Frome. It's different in a general election campaign, but they are obviously thrilled to bits and think that they can get their seat count up significantly. Labour also thrilled in that, you know, they had a massive swing in taking Selby and Ainsty. That shows that they can win these seats that were always Conservative, and it shows that they are probably on course for government. But still, what happened in Uxbridge, there is that. There's a lot of infighting. There's a lot of being blamed back and forth between Sadiq Khan and Keir Starmer saying, oh, you need to rethink about ULEZ. So a lot of infighting there, but also, have people really fallen for Labour under Keir Starmer, or is it really that a lot of people are simply very fed up with the Conservatives? And certainly in Selby and Ainsty, the turnout was only about 40%. It's estimated that about 20,000 Conservative voters simply sat at home.
So it's going to be interesting, and I know obviously it only affects part of the country, but it's the London mayoral elections next year. And obviously this has been a big hit for Sadiq Khan in Uxbridge. Susan Hall's now is now the official Tory candidate. Now, if she was to get in next year, I mean, this is a big boost for her. If she gets in, that does have an impact on the general election, doesn't it? It shows it would be a huge boost to Rishi Sunak.
Oh, it would be a huge boost to Rishi Sunak, but of course London is generally a Labour city. Now, OK, Boris Johnson won it twice, but Susan Hall is not Boris Johnson. I mean, Boris Johnson is one of a kind, and already, you know, they ended up with a fairly small choice of candidates, and already the Evening Standard put the most unflattering picture of her on the cover, and CCHQ are very, very cross about that. So, yes, if she wins, and of course, ULEZ is a huge issue. But the thing is that ULEZ is already, it's coming in this autumn. So by the time that mayoral election happens, it will already have been implemented. So a lot of people will already have had to shell out for different cars.
So her argument was she can just scrap it.
Well, yeah, but if you've already spent 10, 15 grand on your ULEZ compliant car, it's not necessarily going to be much help to you, is it? But certainly they will go huge on that for sure.
There's also been talk of a reshuffle in the next few days and weeks. What do you think about that?
Yeah, there has. And it was widely thought that it might have happened yesterday, and then it hasn't. The thinking was, well, if it's done now, first of all, it will stop people talking about the by-election so obsessively as we are doing, and also it will give ministers time to sort of get on top of their brief by the autumn. But they've decided not to do it. I mean, yes, it's possible. It could come in the coming days. Let's see. I would think more likely now that it'll happen at the beginning of September. But now I've said that, we'll probably get it on
tomorrow.
Monday.
Yeah, probably. Catherine, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you. Do stay with us, lots more to come, including counting down the minutes to England's first game in the Women's World Cup Down Under. This is GB News.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A damp and breezy start for many of us, feeling cool today under the wind and rain. But northern Scotland, the place to be if you fancy sunny skies. It is a bright start here, a cool start, but actually those sunny spells in the north and northwest of Scotland continuing into the afternoon. 1 or 2 showers for parts of Aberdeenshire, Caithness, Sutherland, as well as Shetland and Orkney. A drier start for southeast England. Not much rain moving in here, actually, just light rain on and off by the afternoon. Elsewhere, it is spells of rain, a strengthening breeze, especially around southwest coast, making it feel cool. 16 to 18 Celsius at best. Some places lower where we've got the persistent wet weather. And further persistent bands of rain move through during Saturday evening. Much of it by midnight moving out into the North Sea, but it stays damp and cloudy. A lot of low cloud around for England and Wales overnight, as well as southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, and as a result it's going to be a relatively mild night, 16 Celsius in places by dawn, but it's still breezy in the south. As we start off Sunday, it's a slow start with the cloud eventually lifting and breaking. Sunny spells giving way to showers in southern parts. Central areas, northern England, southern Scotland, North Wales, seeing persistent bands of rain once again. Scotland, a cloudier day, but actually brightening up later with 1 or 2 showers in the far north. Cool in the far north, warmer towards the south.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to. by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the people's channel and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, this is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie. We're on TV, online, on your radio, just about everywhere.
And the Lionesses are ready to roar again as the Women's World Cup kicks off down under in just a few hours. I think it's 10:30 our time.
10:30 our time, yeah. 3 hours, 7 minutes to go. England's footballing Queens of Europe begin their bid to become world champions with a Group D match against Haiti this morning. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I'm going to say good thing. I think we should be looking good this morning. But let's speak to someone who knows, shall we? Georgia Simpson is an England fan who comes to us live from Brisbane in her England shirt. Good morning to you, Georgia. Really good to see you this morning. In fact, it won't be morning where you are, is it? It'll be evening, I'm sure. How are you feeling ahead of this first match?
No, it's actually the afternoon now.
Oh. How are you feeling?
Yeah, really excited. I think the atmosphere's great. It's great. You can really see the atmosphere starting to build up now everywhere, which is really exciting. I was in Sydney for the first game as well, for the Australia game, and it was really good. It's really exciting out here.
And have you travelled down to Australia to watch it, or do you live there?
So I recently moved to Sydney, so we're getting a lot over there. And then, yeah, I've travelled up to Brisbane for this game tonight, so really excited to get going with it.
Oh, wow. And describe the atmosphere for us in Brisbane. Are people really excited? Can you see posters? Can you see people gathering ahead of the games? What's it like on the streets?
There's a fan festival, which is great, along the riverbank. And there's quite a few people there. The atmosphere is looking great. Those pictures were from Sydney on the opening game, and that was just amazing. I think it was over 75,000 people in the stadium. So I think there's still a lot more to go, a lot more that everyone can do to get really behind it. But I think as this tournament goes on, I think a lot more people will get behind it and know about it a bit more.
Yeah, these things always do, don't they? They grow and they grow. So, Georgia, what do you think of our chances then? Let's start with today. What are you expecting to happen today against Haiti?
I'm hoping with tonight's game, I think we have a really good chance of doing really well in this game. I think the big one to watch out for is against Denmark. I think we're really, it'll be a challenge for us. Our group is okay, but Denmark would be the one to watch. And then I think it's going forward within the competition. Once the group stages are over, that's when we really start to see how we do and whether we are able to go up against the likes of the US and all the other teams.
We have got some concerns over injuries, though, haven't we, in the squad?
Yeah, I think that will make a real difference, actually. It's going to be interesting to see with, Leah Williamson, our captain, she's not involved. Beth Mead as well, superstar striker. But then Sam Kerr's also been injured for Australia. And that really showed, I think, in their team on Thursday night. So I think there's other teams that are struggling as well with injuries. So, it'll be an even match, hopefully.
Georgia, do you think that will make a difference? I mean, those big names that we got so familiar with at the Euros, many people would say that they were a big part of that win. They're not in this squad.
Yeah, I think it will make a big difference. But I think as well, the atmosphere within camp, within the England team, they're such a close-knit group. And we have so many young players that are really coming through the ranks as well. And I think as much as, we've got some players who are our sort of superstar players, there are so many players that are still in the team that did make such a difference to that Euro winning squad. So I think we've got a real good chance.
All right, here's one for you. The World Cup song, Do It Again. What do you reckon? Darren has been in touch and says it's very catchy, sounds very Brotherhood of Man, which you'll be too young to know about, I should hope. But what do you reckon? Do you like the tune?
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh. I thought you might have been a bit more enthusiastic than that.
We've just been listening to it on the break, so we're going to work out whether we like it or not. We haven't even decided yet.
No.
But Georgia, what do you think about what this tournament is going to do for women's football? Because especially here in England, obviously we had our tremendous performance in the Euros last year, and it felt like it gave a real oomph to women's sport, especially at grassroots level. Do you think this tournament will do the same?
I'd really like to think so. I think coming off the back of the European win for us, we've seen so many more young people, especially young girls, getting involved in women's football. And I think now it's on a world stage. I think Australia are already sort of up and coming and being really good at getting women involved. And all of the media and all of the advertising, it has been great. I think so many big brands are supporting it, so it's very seen, it's very visible. So hopefully that if we do well, if Australia do well, that's just going to bring the sport even bigger.
Georgia, really good to see you this morning. Good luck later on. Really enjoy the game. I'm sure it's going to be a brilliant atmosphere down there. That's Georgia Simpson, a Lionesses fan in Brisbane. Good to see you. Thanks very much.
It does all this makes you want to go to Australia. I've never been.
Well, you've got to go.
Australia and New Zealand.
I think you need to get a trip in.
A trip in, but you need to go for a couple of months, so at least a month.
6 weeks or something.
That's the trouble.
Maybe have a little chat about stuff.
And that's actually more holiday.
Maybe
I don't know how you do that. Maybe take 6 weeks off.
Yeah, you just need to say, can I have a sabbatical or
Oh, so I don't get paid either.
maybe career break?
Career break.
Well, they'd want you back. But talking of breaks, we're going to one. But stay with us because we've got news and views from all of today's newspapers. This is Breakfast on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant Green, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Now, we had a technical glitch, didn't we? Because we were trying to research the World Cup song for the Lionesses, the England World Cup song. Do it again, I said to Georgia. She wasn't very impressed, but it's the wrong song, that's why.
That's why she wasn't very
impressed. That's the actual World Cup song.
That's the official anthem,
and not the England anthem.
The FIFA anthem. The England anthem, now that.
Call Me a Lioness.
Very good.
It's
By
cheesy.
Hope FC.
It's cheesy, but it works.
Oh, it works.
That's
you can
right.
imagine it being chanted in the stadiums,
You
can't
can.
you?
Sing
so
along
check that out. Call Me a Lioness, Hope FC. Let us know what you think.
Like that a lot.
Yeah.
Actually.
Let's take a look at today's papers, shall we? And The Guardian describes the Tories' defeats as shattering. However, it adds the Conservative slim victory in Uxbridge and South Ruislip offers a glimmer of hope for the Prime Minister.
The Mail says senior Tories urging Rishi Sunak to return to traditional Conservative strategies, which is easy for me to say, or as their headline does it, go true blue or face wipeout.
Yes. The Daily Mirror leads with England's Lionesses campaign to bring the World Cup home. Their match against Haiti will kick off later this morning.
As the song goes. Are you worried about E.T.? The Daily Star says the Pentagon's top UFO researcher says there could be a potentially threatening alien technical surprise.
Ooh.
Let's see what legendary David Hamilton and journalist Emma Wolfe make of it all. Good morning, good to see you. Let's kick off, David, with the Telegraph. We've got to the legendary Tony Bennett. I mean, the man, the thinking man's crooner, if you like.
Yes.
You've been around in this business a very long time. You must have bumped into him.
Not quite as long as Tony Bennett.
Not quite as long.
No. But I did meet him and I interviewed him. I went with my producer to the Dorchester Hotel. He was staying there and we went up to his suite with one of those little portable tape recorders and we had about half an hour of his time. He was an absolute gentleman and he told us that his great hobby was painting and that was his relaxation. And actually he was doing some painting and there was a painting of his in the hotel suite there. And I've always found that the biggest stars are always the nicest people. And
nothing to prove, have they?
No. He was very articulate and we got a wonderful interview with him. Sinatra said he was the best singer of the lot. And of course, he outlived everybody. He did his last concert at 95 and he had Alzheimer's. And the incredible thing was that he remembered all the lyrics of the songs that he was singing. And of course, he kept very much up to date into the sort of contemporary scene with people like Amy Winehouse and Lady Gaga. So he was a star all his life. One of the interesting things was that he was born to a very poor family in New York. And although he left his heart in San Francisco, he actually died in his home city of New York. By the way, I Left My Heart in San Francisco was not his biggest hit. His biggest hit was Stranger in Paradise, and that was #1 back in the mid-50s. Before your time.
That is before my time.
But not mine.
Not yours, no.
And speaking of New York, his version of New York State of Mind is the absolute... It gives you shivers. I mean, it brings tears to my eyes. It's beautiful. He's
yeah.
What a life as well. You know, this arc. He had demons. He famously battled with many addictions of various kinds. That 30-year kind of hiatus in the middle of his career, when 75-year career, and as you say, in the latter years, singing with people like Amy Winehouse and Lady Gaga, absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
A bit like Leonard Cohen in that sort of real gentleman kind of way. People who have nothing to prove but come on and play and sing for hours on end. They don't do that Madonna nonsense where they turn up hours late. I saw Leonard Cohen in his final years when he was nearly 90, late 80s, and it was that kind of commitment to the music and to the performance and to the audience.
And it's so nice. It's so nice to hear about the person as well, isn't it? Behind all of this, I mean, to get a glimpse of what a nice person he was, and no sense of ego is really and the fact he actually fought in World War II. I mean, I didn't know that before.
Yes, that's right.
He took part in those the African American right to vote, those rallies in Selma and Montgomery marches in Alabama. I mean, he really was just an incredible person.
Think about the changes that someone like that will have seen over 90-odd years, 96 years.
Yeah, I think the thing about his singing, I think Emma, in a way, has said this, was that it was so relaxing, it was so effortless. He made it seem so effortless. But he did tell me, he said the painting was the key to it, because he had to find something that relaxed him, and that was what did it.
Yeah.
And probably kept him sharp as well, because, you know, that kind of brain activity is really, really good for people with dementia and Alzheimer's.
I've never worked a day in my life because I love what I do.
Oh, that's
well, that's true, isn't it? If you find a job that you love, you never retire.
No.
And that's why he never retired. He just...
That's why writing is good, because you can't be too old for writing.
It's true.
We didn't see it as work, did he?
All right, well, let's move from something which is lovely to celebrate him, actually. I always think that when people pass away at a grand old age, it's nice not to be sad as much as it is to celebrate a life. I think that's an important thing. But anyway, from something to celebrate in that sense to something certainly not to celebrate, which is absolute hell if you're trying to travel anywhere.
Absolute hell. Well, the only thing to celebrate, I think, frankly, is that we're not trapped in these horror queues, they're calling them. This is ludicrous that we're doing this again, yet again. You were hearing from Simon Calder earlier that we're talking about the travel chaos across the roads, rail networks and airports. Again, 12.6 million cars are going to be trapped on the roads in the next few days as people try and get away. 5-mile tailbacks, millions of people trying to get away, and with bad weather here and heat waves abroad, it's kind of hard to know whether people are staying here and opting for the sort of grey skies summer, or whether they're going to escape to the frightening heat waves of Europe. But chaos is certain. Chaos is certain, and it just amazes me that this kind of thing isn't foreseen, that there isn't better. A lot of people are saying, a lot of travellers are saying that there's very, very poor organisation at the ferry ports, at the airports, and of course it's difficult dealing with this kind of, huge amounts of customers at this time of year, but that is what the travel industry is there to do. You would have thought the government, the travel industry could pull together and make it better than this.
But why can't we stagger ourselves a bit better? I mean, I know there are limits and half terms are difficult and all the rest of it, but it's summer holidays.
But how can we know? How can we stagger ourselves when we're booking holidays?
But the first weekend, this is the first weekend. You know it's going to be...
I don't know. I think people just want to get away, especially after COVID. They haven't been able to travel for a couple of years. The kids are off, whatever. It's miserable weather here. I'm not sure that it's our job booking tickets or booking holidays abroad. Not that I have any holidays booked abroad, but it's not necessarily our job to know when the peak times are. I mean, something is going wrong at the organisational end.
People have to go away when there are school holidays, or most do. But the sad thing is that we're all going to struggle through all the jams and everything. When we get there, the weather's going to be awful. The forecast for the weekend, which we've just seen, is absolutely dreadful. And if you go abroad, it's too hot.
Yeah.
So I think the only answer is just stay at home and watch GB News.
Quite right,
Or listen to Boom Radio.
Or listen to Boom Radio. Well, if you have to.
That was sneaky. Or read one of my books if we're all getting our ads in.
David, let's have a look at The War on Clowns is the story in the Mail.
Yes, it's mums now who are waging war on what the Mail calls the oil clowns. Furious mothers rounded on Just Stop Oil activists. One mother was unable to drive her newborn baby to hospital, but she came up with some great quotes. She said to them, "You are not God. People pay to go on these roads. Don't tell me you've never driven a car."
Well,
good for her.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good point, isn't it? I mean, when I've been covering the Just Stop Oil protests in central London, many of them turn up in petrol and diesel vehicles.
Yeah.
Do they really?
Yeah. I mean, it's not lost on you, the hypocrisy of it all. I mean, they get their stuff out of these
There's an
old
awful lot
vehicles.
of hypocrisy, isn't there?
Yeah.
But they're not really doing their case any good, because we're all fed up with them. And, you know, whether you're a cricket fan or whether you're a tennis fan or whatever it is, you know, you've paid good money. It's all very well, you know, Gary Lineker supporting them. But, you know, if you're at Wimbledon tennis and the tennis is disrupted, or it's the test match, mind you, they won't need to disrupt the test match because the weather's good. The weather, but it is Manchester. What can you expect?
And I think more seriously, we you know, again, we're talking about Just Stop Oil and their antics. We're not talking about the issues. Their cause is getting lost, I think.
Oh,
I think we're talking seriously about the climate issues they're trying to raise. We're talking about them being clowns. We're talking about them disrupting people going about their everyday life. I think the road closures and the disruption in cities is even more kind of egregious than these high-profile events. I don't really care if people at Chelsea Flower Show are slightly inconvenienced or the cricket is stopped for a little bit. But I think when you have cabbies and bus drivers and women with young babies trying to get through roads, I think, you know, they really need to take a look at themselves.
Yeah.
But as you say, the hypocrisy is staggering.
Yeah.
Now, what's this in the Times, Emma? We know Britons are struggling.
This is horrible.
But
well, it's across the papers.
Cutting back on soap.
Yeah, Brits apparently, the sales of shower gel, hand wash and soap have plummeted by up to sort of 48% in the first 6 months of this year. Sales of personal hygiene products, let's not go into it, have really fallen, and it seems that tough decisions are being made on household essentials.
I would have thought the sales of soap would have gone up.
And then luxury products might have dropped.
Because, I mean, I've started doing that. I've started buying bars of soap rather than shower gels.
Oh, old school, yeah.
Well, yeah, because shower gel's really expensive and bars of soap are dirt cheap if you get the right one.
Yeah, no, things like Pears and Dove and all the basic soaps have gone up in price a lot, from £3 to £3.50 for a pack of 6, if you're interested, and people are really cutting back. The only thing that's gone up is hand sanitizer. This is a sort of COVID hangover, which
People
is the thing that actually dries your... Yeah, maybe. I mean, it just dries your hands out, really. So it seems that people are still feeling the pinch in the grocery stores.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad, really, if you think about it. I mean, when I went to a food bank on a story a few months ago, they actually said exactly that when families are starting to cut back, they don't want to cut back on food first. They cut back on their toiletries and its soaps and shower gels.
And also more personal hygiene products for women, which, you know, which we know about.
Expensive.
Which are very expensive and which, you know, young girls, women are really worried about and are not able to buy enough of.
But you can't do without that, can you?
You can.
You can, but it's not pretty.
Not pretty, and young girls going to school and having to do without that kind of thing, which is why at food banks, I'm sure, Ellie, you've seen this, these are the things they need. They need...
That's what they're asking for now.
Yeah,
it's toiletries and
sort of
feminine products.
Female, feminine products, yeah.
No.
I like to have a bath every day, actually, personally.
Do you?
Yes.
Bath in the evening, shower in the morning.
I like to lie there and play with my rubber duck in the bath. You know, it's I find it's very, very relaxing.
Goodness me.
Is it too much information?
Well, no, I tell you what I'm thinking, David, is if you get to your mid-80s, you should be allowed to do what on earth you want, frankly. Why not?
And do you use bubble bath or shower gel or soap?
No, just an ordinary bath, and I do use soap. Yeah,
I'm glad to hear.
I smell quite fragrant.
Good.
My wife tells me.
Well, you see, now I've just got this image of Diddy David Hamilton saying about lathered up. It's like a Morecambe and Wise sketch.
With his rubber duck?
With the rubber duck, all lathered up.
I thought you needed a laugh, so I just chucked that one in.
David, we should swap. I'm sick of taking baths surrounded by rubber ducks and even water pistols with my little one. So you could come over, have a bath with him with all this rubber stuff, and I could just enjoy a glass of wine, kind of, you know, scented candles kind of bath.
Do you have a glass glass of wine on the bath. When you're in the bath, you have one on the side?
No, I'm saying that in my former life, I can imagine. I don't think it actually works when you take wine into the bath. You'd knock it over, or it would get hot, or it would get steamy. And
or a nice gin.
Oh, a gin?
That would do nicely. Oh, it does. I want a little. What's that nice tray you can get that goes across the bath?
Yeah, across the bath with all the bits and bobs.
Yeah, probably.
And you can get ones now with a little wine stand or a gin stand. And that's for me.
Do you know, I would have had you down as doing that.
Ellie, enjoy it while you can.
Take that as a compliment.
Well, she is a lush, isn't she? Basically, and there's no.
I think this would cheer us all up after all the traffic jams and all the rain and everything.
But it's not worth going anywhere,
Let's
David.
Have a laugh
Stay at
comedy
home.
show on GB News.
Well. I don't think that's quite our remit at this time of day, but you never know. I did that
You never know,
direction.
actually, the way we go on.
Let's have a look, Emma, at the eye, should we? And Queen Elizabeth's name to be closely protected.
Yeah, well, this is obviously following the death of Queen Elizabeth II, and pubs and parks and buildings that are thinking of renaming themselves after Queen Elizabeth II is actually going to be quite closely protected, her name. We've heard about this in the last few days.
Yeah.
Cabinet Office is saying that you do need to apply for permission, that permission to use the late Queen's name will only be sparingly granted. You can't just rename your pub. I think that's a bit weird, actually.
I thought you could just rename it to whatever you
I thought
want.
you could just name it whatever you wanted. Parks. I mean, they've just named a street somewhere, Zelensky Avenue. They've just renamed that, yeah, which is surprising. So I thought you could just say Queen... You know, pubs are always called after King so-and-so or Queen so-and-so, but no, apparently it's going to be quite sparingly protected. And also there's a commission, a royal commission, which I was reading about last night, which is going to look into a memorial for Queen Elizabeth in some way, whether that's an annual event or a public monument or something. So there'll be some announcements before her anniversary of her death in September.
Right.
So lots to watch on the royal front.
Wow, coming up September.
Yeah,
already.
September, a year.
Yeah.
What a year it's been.
Oh, wow.
I'm just wondering if we're going to have a pub called the Lilybet.
Oh. Well,
That
actually,
would be
that would be
nice.
nice.
An English bar started in
Not
California.
been done before, is it?
Lilybet.
No one else has had that, have they?
Well, we'll have to... That can be our homework.
Oh, there's a Prince George near me, which was the first Prince George pub to be named Prince George after the birth of George.
Yeah.
And they were allowed to do that?
Mm.
Yeah, you see, I didn't know that you could stop people from renaming their pubs in that way.
I think it's quite nice.
Anyway, look, thank you both. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on. And talking of Prince George, he's celebrating his 10th birthday today. He's understood to be marking the milestone privately with his family, which sounds very official, but what that basically means is Mum and Dad will throw him a party, jelly and ice cream.
But he's not going to be nipping out to the clubs, is he?
No.
At 10 years old.
Privately. Let's just have a kid's birthday party. 10.
Well, the Prince and Princess of Wales have released this new picture of the future king, which was taken in Windsor earlier this month.
And
doesn't he just look so handsome?
Well, it's the legs. Look at it. It's the legs. He's reaching that point now where he's going to have legs like beam poles.
He's like his dad, isn't
He's
he?
going to start... He'll be shooting up before you know it now.
He is very tall now. Do you see that a video of him with his parents this week? He's shot up.
Has he really?
Yeah, he's very tall.
There you go. It's
Amazing.
frightening.
It really is.
Absolutely frightening. They grow up so quickly these days. And all the young people are so tall these days.
Yeah.
You notice that? It's terrifying. I used to be considered tall. Now I'm definitely not. Anyway, our roll chorus... That's important.
It is.
They call him me Diddy Dixon. Eventually, they will.
That's it. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Diddy Dixon.
Could happen. Well, our roll correspondent Cameron Walker takes a look back now on Prince George's first 10 years.
10 years ago, this street was full of royal fans and journalists eagerly awaiting the arrival of the future king with his parents to pose in front of the cameras. A lot have changed since that day. Queen Elizabeth was still on the throne. The world hadn't heard of Meghan Markle. Britain's future was bright. He was named George Alexander Louis, born into a modern world but destined to become head of an ancient institution. It's a delicate balance. The Prince and Princess of Wales take the privacy of their eldest son incredibly seriously, but they're aware of the inevitable public interest in him. Royal biographer Robert Jobson thinks Prince William and Princess Catherine have given their son the right level of media exposure.
He's fully aware of what's in store for him, but ultimately the most important thing is to give him time and space to develop as a child until the inevitable is upon him, because at some stage, you know, this young lad is going to have to be the king, and it brings with it a lot of weight of responsibility.
The young prince's sense of duty already shines through. He was his grandfather's page during May's coronation. Pomp, pageantry, and rubbing shoulders with foreign heads of state. A glimpse into his future.
Hello, David Attenborough. What animal do you think will become extinct next?
It looks like Prince George is taking after his father and grandfather, caring passionately about the planet. Last year, the boss of conservation charity Tusk exclusively revealed to GB News that the future king has already been doing his bit to help Africa's wildlife.
Prince George very sweetly did a little cake sale to raise money for Tusk during lockdown, and wrote a very sweet card, about it, clearly demonstrating his concern for, Africa's wildlife.
George also volunteered with his family to renovate a scout hut during the national Big Help Outs this year, but the young prince is still a child and has plenty of time for fun. This year, George was spotted enjoying a day out at the Ashes with Prince William, as well as Wimbledon and an air show. Today, he turns 10, and secondary school is not far away. He was spotted visiting Eton College last month, an indication perhaps his parents are considering sending their son to the very prestigious school where Prince William was once a pupil. It looks like Prince George is set to follow in his father's footsteps in more ways than one. Cameron Walker, GB News.
See, that shot of Prince William at a similar age, they look identical, pretty much. Not far from it.
Well, the genes are strong, aren't they?
Oh, that's bad news for his hair when he gets older.
Wow. Hopefully he takes more after his mother's side, whose father still has a full head of hair.
Oh, does he?
He does.
Oh,
yep.
There you go.
Saw a photo of him the other day. Lots of you getting in touch on baked beans. Because they're down 50... Well, liquid now makes up...
10 beans.
Yeah,
Heinz have reduced the number of beans in a tin by 10.
Yes, but liquid makes up 50% of the can now.
Instead of 49%.
Something like that, yeah, but I'm really tasting the difference.
You're
all getting in touch. Leslie says she recommends Aldi beans, £1.44 cans. Even when heated, they are still very rich with the sauce. Tammy says, switched from Heinz years ago, so overpriced. Don't get me started on the price of ketchup.
You see, Sharon, it's all personal taste. Sharon says, don't buy Heinz. Waitrose is very good. M&S aren't bad. See, I don't like M&S beans. They just don't taste
What does
the
it for you,
same.
then?
Heinz. I always buy Heinz.
All right.
Beans means and all that.
Lidl.
Each to their own.
Lidl, says Steve, half the price, twice as nice.
Oh, well.
Do keep your views coming in on that, or any of the other news that we're talking about today. GB Views of GB News.
And lots of beans are available. Let's have a look at the weather for you.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A damp and breezy start for many of us, feeling cool today under the wind and rain. But northern Scotland, the place to be if you fancy sunny skies. It is a bright start here, a cool start, but actually those sunny spells in the north and northwest of Scotland continuing into the afternoon. 1 or 2 showers for parts of Aberdeenshire, Caithness, Sutherland, as well as Shetland and Orkney. A drier start for southeast England. Not much rain moving in here, actually, just light rain on and off by the afternoon. Elsewhere, it is spells of rain, a strengthening breeze, especially around southwest coast, making it feel cool, 16 to 18 Celsius at best. Some places lower, where we've got the persistent wet weather. And further persistent bands of rain move through during Saturday evening. Much of it, by midnight, moving out into the North Sea, but it stays damp and cloudy, a lot of low cloud around for England and Wales overnight, as well as southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, and as a result, it's going to be a relatively mild night, 16 Celsius in places by dawn, but it's still breezy in the south. As we start off Sunday, it's a slow start with the cloud eventually lifting and breaking. Sunny spells giving way to showers in southern parts. Central areas, northern England, southern Scotland, North Wales, seeing persistent bands of rain once again. Scotland, a cloudier day, but actually brightening up later with 1 or 2 showers in the far north. Cool in the far north, warmer towards the south.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
Is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 8 o'clock, good morning. Saturday, the 22nd of July. Today, well, it should be a surge in getaways. More than 2 million of us heading overseas this weekend, about 13 million hitting the roads. Are we going to have a smooth journey?
The Conservatives need to claw back support after their by-election defeats. Is ditching net zero the way to do it?
The Lionesses are ready to roar again as the Women's World Cup kicks off. Well, their match kicks off this morning down under 10:30 against Haiti.
And what's happening weather-wise today?
It's a damp start for many of us, but will it be a weekend washout or is there any brighter weather on the horizon? I'll have the full forecast coming up soon.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News. You've been forgiven.
Oh, have I?
Yes. We both had a Domino's last night, a very large one. Not together, actually. We're just that in sync.
Coincidentally, I got a message from your man saying, we've just had a Domino's, well, as I was parked outside Domino's picking some up.
I know, it's weird, isn't it? We're very...
It is very weird.
I ordered, yeah, very good. Anyway, we were...
I'm on a diet, very bad.
Stephen's on a diet, but Tracy's been in touch saying, Stephen, you don't need to diet. You look both fabulous and very healthy. I believe a little of what you like is good.
Oh, a little bit of what you fancy does you good.
There you go.
My father always used to say.
So you've been forgiven by Tracy. I told you, too hard on yourself.
Thank you, Tracy.
And
well,
enjoyed it is the key thing.
I did enjoy it. I did, but people are not happy with food because of shrinkflation and all that sort of thing. Lots of concern about rice puddings this morning. Ian says Muller Rice have cut the amount of rice in their product. It's cheaper to get a tin of rice pudding now.
Oh, you're not wrong about the rice pudding.
No.
Yeah, Barbara says the Ambrosia cream rice pudding.
So she's buying a tin.
Yeah, I used to have to really snake the pudding out and scrape the tin of rice, but now it's so liquefied it just spills out. Hardly any rice in it. Well, why is that then? Has the price of rice gone up? Clearly.
I don't know.
Must have done.
Carol in Manchester. Oh, Carol. She says, I noticed yesterday that Tesco's beans and sausages only had 7 sausages in it.
Wow.
It's normally 8. I am outraged.
I'm telling you. And I bet you it's the same price. I bet you it's the same price, Carol, or even more, potentially.
Yeah. And Lee must be of a certain age, because he says... How old are you, Lee? I'd love to know. Horlicks. Noticed, like last week, the price is up 20p, the jar size down 100 grams. Ooh. That's a lot. Horlicks, I didn't know this still...
Excuse me, Horlicks is great. I drink Horlicks.
Do you?
Yeah.
See, when
it's a nice malty taste, get you off to sleep.
You see, when I was younger, it was always what your grandma always drank Horlicks. Nobody over the age of about 75 drank Horlicks.
Yeah, I've got...
Maybe it's getting all traction with the youth.
And I'm with the people on beans. I'm saying they've got too runny. Uni, I think this is, says, I agree with Ellie. Read the beans. Also, less sheets in toilet rolls, and there are lots more products getting smaller at more costs.
You see,
they must assume we're stupid.
See, Barbara, you see, she says, we swapped to Branston beans. Less liquid, better taste too, especially the ones with the sausages, and they do vegetarian sausages too, which is for my benefit. You see, I tried Branston beans when they came out, and I was very, very disappointed, Barbara, because I expected them to have a taste of Branston pickle.
No, you don't want that on your beans.
You would, yeah. I thought they'd have a bit of, like, Branston flavour in them.
Infused.
And they didn't. So I never bought them again. I thought, well, I'm not doing these.
Yeah,
they just tasted beans.
I wouldn't be sold on that myself.
I think they missed a trick there, Barbara. What do you reckon?
Well, maybe you could come up with something.
I think so.
And Leslie in Norfolk says she agrees with me that Heinz is very runny. So yeah.
Yeah, but she says she changed to Branston, which were better but have gone downhill recently.
Confirmation there from Barbara. No, that's
Leslie.
Sorry. Barbara's the one.
So Barbara and Leslie need to go head-to-head somewhere on this one.
That can be our next debate.
We'll get you both on. The bean off.
The bean off on this channel. The next debate can be about that. But yeah...
They've gone down 10 beans, Ellie, a tin.
I know, 10 beans, yes.
You wouldn't notice.
50% of the can is now liquid. I don't think
you need them to have lots of... You'd moan if they had no sauce in them. Then they'd just be haricot beans, wouldn't they?
But then the price has gone up. £1.40 a can. I don't think it's acceptable. Anyway, do keep them coming in. What have you spotted in your local supermarket? What's getting on your goat? Getting your goat. gbnews@gbnews.com. Getting on your goat.
If you've got a goat, get off it. Just get off the goat. It's not fair. Anyway.
Oh, dear. Oh, and one on the summer getaway.
Oh, thank heavens.
John says, we're heading back to the Midlands today from Cornwall. Oh, no, they did it yesterday. I missed the word we were heading back to the Midlands yesterday from Cornwall. A 5-hour journey took 9 hours.
Oh.
But looking at the traffic on the other side was even worse. It was even more horrendous. Now, that is the worst feeling, isn't it?
It's awful, isn't it? Well, it's not going to be a happy weekend. They reckon about 13 million cars on the road this weekend and more than 2 million holidaymakers trying to get overseas. Today is going to be the busiest day, according to ABTA.
Well, there is also a rail strike, there's airport queues and delays at the port of Dover, which could potentially make those journeys anything but pleasant.
Let's head to Glasgow Airport then, should we? See what our Scotland reporter Tony Maguire has got for us. What's happening there in terms of delays, queues, cancellations, Tony?
Morning, Stephen and Ellie. Yes, I would say that actually today Glasgow passengers have lucked out. The only red on the board seems to be for closed gates. All flights seem to be running as intended, and things are, as you can see behind me, really busying up. That queue behind me becoming quite a common fixture of any trip to the airport these days. I just caught a flight actually that came, that just arrived from Montreal, and a lot of Glaswegians on the flight, a lot of Canadians as well, funnily enough. And they were saying that pretty much anywhere in the world, no matter where you go these days, you're really looking at the same issues as we're facing here. So while they are close to home and while they are, you know, they seem really pressing, and of course they are to those who are directly involved, it's somewhat comforting to know that we're not alone in this, and that actually airports, whether it's strikes or in the public transport in general, can all be succumb to the same thing. So as we said, on to happier topics. As we said, this is the busiest day of the busiest weekend of the summer for travel. Yesterday, of course, was a bumper day for ports around the country. But today it's the turn of the airport. Some 2 million Brits are expected to travel abroad this weekend, and that includes a hearty amount from our airports. ABTA, they had, I think, estimated around 200,000 from Manchester Airport and about 70,000 from Bristol alone. So from those two airports, that's about 1/8 of the entire population that they are projecting will go away. And of course, one of the main reasons to go away is the weather, because certainly the next couple of weeks here in the UK is looking rather dreich and looking pretty dull. So wherever you're going in the world, know that the weather is almost guaranteed to be better than it is here. So Glasgow airport staff, they've got a bit of a smile on their face because just last week they secured an 11.1% pay increase. But unfortunately, other airports around the UK haven't made their deal yet. So we know that Gatwick are scheduled for the next couple of weekends. If you're travelling this weekend, you're safe, don't worry. Next weekend and the weekend after, you can expect some industrial action from some groups within the airport. Similarly at Luton Airport, they've got a couple of strike days. And of course, that just kind of ties into the whole, is this going to be yet another summer of discontent for the travellers and passengers who are just trying to get away for the summer? One thing I will say is that a slight bit of good news for airports around the country. They are projecting that finally this year passenger numbers should return to pre-pandemic levels. Now, obviously the last couple of years were really quite telling and straining. We saw a lot of issues with staffing around the airport while airports struggled to move the beans around. And they have really lucked out this year, it would seem, that eventually people are now trusting that it's safe to go away, and they're expecting that to do so. So quite this weekend is certainly the best weekend to fly out, if that is your intention. And of course, any of the next couple of weekends, by all means check the travel advice and maybe leave for the airport that wee bit early.
Really, really good advice there, Tony Maguire. And things do look quite smooth behind you, so hopefully that continues to be the case. I know that you're standing underneath a board now with all those departing flights. We're going to put you on the spot. Where would you like to fly to today? If you had a choice, what would you have your eye on?
I quite like the adventure holidays, so I would quite maybe like to go to somewhere like Thailand or Vietnam, somewhere that requires a wee bit of walking and some wild swimming, that kind of thing. So that's my cup of tea there. But it's quite a long flight, so I need to hit up the W.H. Smith behind me.
Yeah, well, you probably would, yeah. Tony, thanks very much indeed. Oh, it's a little adventurer.
He is.
Never knew that.
Yeah, well, he can dream of Thailand whilst he stands in Glasgow Airport.
Oh, yeah.
And reports on everybody else going on holiday.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony Maguire. Always good to see him.
Now, the Prime Minister is going to launch an aggressive campaign, apparently, to fight Labour's poll lead with policies on immigration, crime, trans rights as well, apparently. Comes after 2 losses, and I have to say, they were big losses in yesterday's by-election results.
And according to The Telegraph, ministers have also urged the Prime Minister to ditch key net zero pledges. And that follows the unexpected win, just about 495 votes in it, where ULEZ was weaponised against Labour.
Well, let's talk to political commentator Piers Pottinger, who's here in the studio. Good to see you this morning. What do we make of all of this? Because, I mean, these pressures on the Prime Minister to sort of up the ante a little bit strikes me as sticking plaster rather than big solution. I mean, one of the papers this morning, it's a Mail, maybe nails it a little bit more strongly when they say go true blue or face wipeout.
Yes, I think the Mail is accurate, but the results weren't quite as bad for the government as most people had predicted. And I think Uxbridge was clearly a surprise, but showed how the Labour Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan's insane ULEZ tax on almost everyone is so unpopular.
But the problem with Uxbridge and South Ruislip is that it's not as though the Tories won it.
No.
It's Sadiq Khan lost it for
exactly.
Labour.
Well, of course, the Tories lost in Selby. And again, in Selby, there was a very small turnout. There were 33,000 voters in Selby, and in the general election, there were 56,000. And that made that although the government will, of course, use the excuse the Conservatives stayed at home, but then, nevertheless, there is some evidence to point to that. And I think, though, the problem is that Labour may have peaked too soon. They're way ahead in the polls, even though no one knows what their policies are, least of all Keir Starmer, who changes his mind every 5 minutes. So they may have peaked too soon. And if Rishi Sunak does what some of the papers are saying, and actually does this forcibly, go back to proper Conservative values, things like cutting taxes, looking at stopping immigration, illegal immigration especially, in the way he said he could. Mind you, he's being stopped at almost every turn by either cabals of civil servants or the House of Lords, which is predominantly not Conservative. So he's struggling to get things through, and we've only got a year to go. A lot of people expected him to do a cabinet reshuffle this weekend, which he's not going to do, and said he's not, which I think is right, because actually there's really very little point in shuffling the deck when they haven't got time to achieve anything. And a year may be a long time in politics, but it's a very short time in government. There's very little that they can actually get done. But they've got to be trying to do the popular things with Conservative voters if they're going to have any chance of stopping Labour winning. And, of course, the Lib Dems, who did well in Somerset, traditionally the South West is a great area for the Lib Dems. And even though people might wonder who are the Lib Dems, no one knows about any of their policies. I'd be surprised if anyone could name them. And Ed Davey, who leads the party, people forget when he was in government, he was the Minister for the Post Office and oversaw the biggest miscarriage of justice in this country over the sub-postmasters. And who did he report to? The Business Secretary, who was another Lib Dem, Vince Cable. So I think the Lib Dems, though, are in danger of ruining the party for Rishi. And they're the biggest danger, I think, in the forthcoming election.
What do you think about Sir Keir Starmer? How do you think he'll be feeling today with about a year to go until the general election? Because he's described the results as a cry for change, that Britain wants a Labour government. But the reality is, Selby, if we look at that, as you say, turnout was low. So he does still need to do a lot more, doesn't he, to get people excited about Labour and not just vote against the Tories, but actually vote for Labour.
I mean, the most successful political slogan in any election campaign is "time for a change," and it resonates with people. And there's no doubt the Conservatives have been in power for, most people would say, too long, and they feel stale and they need refreshing. And if Rishi Sunak, in the course of August, while they're in recess, can really marshal his troops, come out with a really punchy strategy and try and achieve some things, then there's hope for him. But Starmer, I mean, it's very hard to get excited about Keir Starmer, and he does keep changing his mind dramatically on almost every major policy issue. And his problem is going to come from within the party, the extreme left, who are still very much there, the Corbynistas of old. And in fact, the new MP in Selby, he is a very extreme left-wing, and famously, when he was in the Oxford Union at Oxford University, described the feminist author Germaine Greer as an abhorrent transphobe. And that's how strong his views are on a very tricky subject, which I think Keir Starmer is so famously shied away from, asked countless times to define what a woman is. He won't do it. And I think Starmer's got a lot of weakness.
On that issue, I've got to raise it because it always grabs me a little bit, because it's an issue which is very easy to trip people up on. Do most people actually care? Most people just want people to get on with their lives and all the rest of it. It seems to be an issue which you get some resonance from, but it doesn't affect most people. So why are we getting our knickers in a twist over it?
Well, I couldn't agree more with you, Stephen. I mean, it seems to me absurd that we spend so much time on this issue. But the fact of the matter is, we seem to. And there is a very vocal minority group who keep stirring this up. And I'd much rather concentrate on the cost of living, I'd much rather concentrate on the economy and worldwide current affairs, which are extremely important as well. And without the reshuffle coming, we're going to have a weak Ministry of Defence with the Secretary of State saying he's stepping down at the first reshuffle, whenever that might be. And there could be a small one, and I suspect it'll be very small, in September. People are talking about James Cleverly as the next Secretary of State for Defence. But he said in America yesterday, if anyone's listening, I want to stay where I am as Foreign Secretary. So if there is a reshuffle, I think it'll be minimal. Right. And I think we're stuck with this lot until the next election.
OK. Piers, really good to see you this morning. Thank you
very
very
nice
much
to see
indeed.
you, Stephen.
If you've got any views on that, let us know. gbviews@gbnews.com.
But do stay with us. We're going to have all the sports news with Aidan McGee. This is Breakfast on GB News.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A damp and breezy start for many of us, feeling cool today under the wind and rain. But northern Scotland, the place to be if you fancy sunny skies. It is a bright start here, a cool start, but actually those sunny spells in the north and northwest of Scotland continuing into the afternoon. 1 or 2 showers for parts of Aberdeenshire, Caithness, Sutherland, as well as Shetland and Orkney. A drier start for southeast England. Not much rain moving in here, actually. Just light rain on and off by the afternoon. Elsewhere, it is spells of rain. A strengthening breeze, especially around southwest coast, making it feel cool. 16 to 18 Celsius at best. Some places lower, where we've got the persistent wet weather. And further persistent bands of rain move through during Saturday evening. Much of it by midnight moving out into the North Sea, but it stays damp and cloudy. A lot of low cloud around for England and Wales overnight, as well as southern Scotland, Northern Ireland. And as a result, it's going to be a relatively mild night, 16 Celsius in places by dawn, but it's still breezy in the south. As we start off Sunday, it's a slow start with the cloud eventually lifting and breaking. Sunny spells giving way to showers in southern parts. Central areas, northern England, southern Scotland, North Wales, seeing persistent bands of rain once again. Scotland, a cloudier day, but actually brightening up later with 1 or 2 showers in the far north. Cool in the far north, warmer towards the south.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio, and online.
Join the live desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Da-da-da-da-dum, etc.
That's the whole point. But bomb.
And action.
Sergeant read my superstar panel. They're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
8:24 morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
And do keep your views coming in on any of the stories that we're talking about today. We do love to hear from you. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Especially about baked beans. We're just getting hundreds and hundreds of emails about baked beans now.
Yeah, my finger's on the pulse.
Isn't it just?
It is.
Your hands in the beans.
My hands are in the beans.
Let's see what Aidan McGee's got for us this morning. Good to see you.
Morning to you both. How are you? Good to be with you.
Yeah, should we guys kick off with a bit of cricket?
Why not? I mean, look, England have excelled themselves here. They've hit 592. That's the highest total in a home Ashes test since 1985. However, it might not be enough. Not because Australia are going to chase England down or because Australia's batting isn't good enough or anything like that. It just could be the weather. And this rain forecast throughout the day today in Manchester, a 90% chance of rain. I've just checked on my weather app, so you can. And I lived in Manchester for many years, so I know that it can be quite changeable up there, to say the least. But if you look at what England have done the last few days, I mean, Mark Wood got 2 late wickets yesterday. Harry Brook 61. Ben Stokes, I mean, he's been on fire throughout the series. Another 51 from him. Johnny Bairstow, a massive story of redemption for him. I mean, he walked away from the stumps in the Lords in the second test. He's not been great in the field, but this time he's produced that wonderful catch the other day from behind the wicket, and he rattled in 99 yesterday, just one off his century, and that was outstanding, really. And so that puts England in, under normal circumstances, they would be in a great position, but because the rain may curtail some of the overs, they'll have to use the Duckworth-Lewis method, which is.
So how does that work then?
it's a calculation based on a mathematical formula which averages out the number of runs you would have got. So it's in what you need to do if you're Australia. You need to go in this morning and try and play for time, bat really conservatively, drag the time out a little bit, and just hope the rain comes.
Because they're 162
behind. Yeah, they are. And so that's, as I say, that would normally be enough to do the job. And they only need a draw to retain the Ashes, don't forget. You know, they don't have to win because they've already won 2 in the first two tests, but if they could take it to a 5th and have it all to play for when we go down to the Oval, it would just be so good because it would be a vindication of the management as well with England, vindication of Stokes, a vindication of Bazball. 2 weeks ago you said Baz has got to go.
Yeah, I do. I still think that.
You still think that?
I still think Bazball should go.
Well, if it wasn't, you could say that you don't get 5-9-2 unless you bat expansively, and they've taken risks. They're not quite batting with the same abandon that they were in the first two tests. They've reined it in slightly. The fielding's got so much better. There aren't as many drop catches. They've minimised the number of errors they're making in and around the wicket, and I think if it goes to 2-2, I mean, I can't remember a series like this since probably 2005, when England won it for the first time since well over 20 years, since '87 in fact.
Mm.
So we will see, but it's all about the weather this morning. We'll see what happens. 90% chance of rain. My app doesn't normally let me down.
So do you think we could pull it back?
Yeah, I do. I think. I think. It depends on the weather, really.
Yeah,
as simple
we'll
as
see.
that.
We'll see
That's
what
all.
happens.
We'll know more. We're meant to be underway for 11 o'clock. There's a chance it will clear by 4 o'clock. So we've got a bit of a long wait.
Yeah.
Should we stick with the theme of Australia?
Why not?
Because we are playing down under, aren't we? At 10:30 this morning. Oh, yeah, but it's in Australia.
Yes,
we're playing
Haiti.
Haiti.
We are
yes.
indeed. Yeah.
Trying to make a segue here, Aidan.
Yeah, I know. So I'll keep quiet in future. So
Yeah.
No, well, it's probably best. People have said that to me throughout my life.
But the Lionesses kick off.
Yeah, they do. 10:30. I'm not worried about this game particularly. England should get through this. They should get through the group, even though Denmark and China will offer some kind of opposition, you would have thought.
Yeah. But they're itching to begin.
Yeah, that's just the washing powder, I think. No. I'm a bit concerned just because England won the tournament in the Euros 1 year ago. They've lost 4 key players since then. If you remember when England won the Rugby World Cup in 2003, they were hit by a spate of retirements. They never really got back on track until 4 years later. To try and repeat that success within a year in any sporting level is very difficult. Frank Kirby's got a knee injury as well. Leah Williamson has a knee injury. Beth Mead has a knee injury. And Ellen White retired. And there were 4 key players that they're going to be without in the next few weeks. Australia are the host nation. They beat England for the first time in 30 matches. England have been on an unbeaten run of 30 games. So Australia are going to be very, very dangerous, as well as the usual suspects. And
are we favourite for this?
I wouldn't say we're favourites, no. I think we're second favourites behind USA. Yeah, I think we're probably around about equal to Australia, I would have thought. USA have been playing women's football for the longest, and they've got the most established league. More money's come into the English game in recent years, but USA are still the ones to beat, although they've not been in sparkling form since winning the World Cup 4 years ago either. So it's difficult when you're looking at form from 4 years ago. So much can change, can't it? In 4 years' time, in 4 years, we've had a whole pandemic in between times, so it does affect sport as well. But look, they should go down there with no inferiority complex. They've still got good players in their squad. Women's football has changed immeasurably in the last, probably since 2015, and they're improving all the time. And they've got a coach who has been proven. The Dutch coach, Serena Weigman, she's proved that she's moved England from just being nearly side to achievers. Yeah. It's not an easy thing to do.
Well, fingers are crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. What's going on with Kylian Mbappe?
You've just been waiting to pronounce that one,
No, well, I'll tell you what, because, look, I may not know a lot about football, but when we had the big international, I don't know what it was.
World Cup.
Was it the World Cup?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I was watching it. But Mbappe was the one we were worried about.
Yes, he was, indeed. He did. We kept him quiet. We actually kept him quiet, but the problem is when you keep one player quiet, if they've got other good players as well, then they can sometimes come to the fore. But, look, he's been left out of Paris Saint-Germain's squad for their pre-season tour of Japan and Korea. There's no sign of an injury. He is entering the last year of his contract. It's been supposed that he would go to Real Madrid. I've got a sneaky suspicion, Man City might be planning something. Although they've got Haaland already, they want to become this super club. They want to increase their... Man City keep talking about the brand of Manchester City. I don't like that word in football. I'm a traditionalist. I don't like the word brand. Brand for me is about clothing. It's not about football. Man City keeps talking about the brand. In terms of a brand, they reckon the most important in football now, Manchester City. If they got Mbappe, with everything he brings and the colossal commercial opportunities he brings with him, there's an opportunity there as well. But, I mean, he transferred in 2017 for 165.7 million. If he ran down his contract, he goes for nothing next summer. which is just extraordinary. And that's what you can do under the Bosman ruling. You know, it's restraint. The previous rules under retain and transfer were that, and they were abolished in, 1995. With the Bosman ruling, it means that players can run down their contract and just go whenever they feel like it. You don't get any transfer fee now. So that will be... It's not going to dent Paris Saint-Germain's ambitions too much because they're owned by the Qatari royal family, so there's plenty of money coming from there. But I think... I can't say at the moment whether he's going to go or stay. We'll know more in the next few days.
OK, watch this space.
Indeed.
And should we have a look at the golf?
Yeah, just quickly, let's have a look at the golf. We've got the Open going on this weekend. My brother and his family have gone up there. They were really excited yesterday up to Hoylake in Liverpool. Brian Harman is ahead. This is what's interesting about golf. You see the big prizes are shared around. You can be Rory McIlroy over the last 8-9 years. You can be amazingly consistent, but just have a little bit of a psychological problem when you go into Sunday when the stakes go up a little bit more. And then you get people... I mean, Brian Harman's not an unknown, but he's not somebody you associate with major winners. I mean, Tommy Fleetwood as well. He's another one. He's from Southport, which is just down the road. It'd be a massive thing for him to win so close away from home. And, we'll know... They had a just up oil process yesterday, but it didn't last very long. Those golfers didn't tolerate them for too long.
Good. What's going on with it? I tell you what is fascinating about this is those potholes. Pot bunkers.
Yeah, I know, but this is the challenge you get on
I don't want to fill them in. They're fierce, though.
Yeah, I know. Just up oil protesters got filled in. They were the only ones that got filled in yesterday. But no, look. Every time you go to a course, there are lots of different variables that affect how the course runs. There are some players who perform well in inclement weather. In tennis, for example, Roger Federer always performed better when the roof was across because it meant the accuracies of his shots were truer and he can guarantee that we hit the lines. And the potholes are just one of those things you're going to have to put up with them, I'm afraid. It's just a vagary of the course, and the players have to put up with them and know about them in advance, and they have to put up with it. Simple as that. Just like the cricket, how frustrating is it? You get to 5-9-2 and you could be curtailed by the weather.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah,
everyone knows.
Frustrating. Aidan, thank you very much indeed.
Good to see you both.
Thank you. Now, let's have a look at all of the headlines making Saturday's papers. We'll do it after this break, shall we? This is Breakfast on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
8:37 morning to you. We've got a treat, of course, this morning, as you will have known if you've been with us all morning this morning, because we've got the fabulous duo of David Hamilton and Emma Wolfe taking us through the papers this morning, which actually is a joy.
It has been a joy. It has been a joy.
Yeah. So, David, we'll kick off with you, should we? And the Times.
Yes.
Looking at dementia. It's a very serious issue.
I thought we would start with an uplifting story. And we were talking earlier about Tony Bennett, who suffered from Alzheimer's. The Times, page 11 today, Cameron's mother's dementia makes it personal, but an answer is in sight. And there are two breakthroughs for Alzheimer's. There's a diagnostic home blood test, and there's a new drug. Why are the names of drugs always impossible to pronounce?
It's very difficult.
Couldn't they just make it an... Anyway, I'm not going to even try, but what it does...
Abomethicillin or something, it's always...
Yeah, something like that. It slows cognitive decline by up to 60%.
Wow.
David Cameron, president of the Alzheimer's Research UK, says this is the beginning of the end. So isn't it good?
Is that PM David Cameron?
Huh?
Is that David
Yes,
Cameron?
the David Cameron.
Yeah.
I was going to say, isn't it good to hear a former Prime Minister doing something useful?
Well, it is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's interesting because dementia and Alzheimer's, I mean, there's a lot of thought, or there's always been a lot of thought, that it's just one of those things with ageing, and as we are all living longer, then, you know, brain decline, is all this happens. The fact that they can actually, you know, work on this and actually get results on this is phenomenal.
It is really positive, and this drug was announced, I think, on Tuesday. But there are lots and lots of questions. Again, do we have the scanners involved in scanning a lot, you know, thousands and thousands of people? Do we have the resources in the NHS to provide this drug, which is not cheap? How are we going to diagnose people? Because the earlier you can get in there with this drug, the better the results. So, I mean, and again, it's kind of down the line.
Yeah.
Well, when you're watching a parent or something with dementia or with Alzheimer's, you don't have time. You know, there's always sort of 6 in a year or in 2 years or in 5 years, these breakthroughs. So there's a feeling, I think, that we kind of need to speed this stuff up. And,
it is always for the next generation.
One of the good things about this is that you can have a home blood test, and that's
really
That could be a game changer.
important. So, you know, I mean, the fact that you can test yourself at home.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to do more of that, don't we, generally? If it's difficult to see a GP, we need to have more things that we can test at home.
There's lots of stuff now, though, isn't there, where you can... I mean, the instant result stuff is slightly less reliable, but the stuff where you just have to... It's a bit of a faff, but you can, you know, you put your blood into a little tube and send it off in the post, and you get a result, you know, a few days later.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff like that is a game changer.
I think the real key would be pharmacies and things, because I think people who are older and who are maybe a little bit confused or in the early stages wouldn't necessarily be able to do their own blood pinprick, all these tests that you need to do, submit the results online. But I think if we could use pharmacies locally more, you know, and so that you're not waiting to see a GP, that would be a game changer, because pharmacists are a brilliant kind of underused resource,
Well,
aren't they?
underpaid. There's
underpaid, under-resourced,
the problem with pharmacists is
experts.
the contracts.
They see so many patients effectively.
Yeah.
I think they're brilliant. If you're poorly and you go and see your local pharmacist, they usually can point you.
Yeah, but I mean, the reality is we're all living longer, aren't we? So this is going to affect more and more people. And it is just the cruelest disease is out
there. Are lots of things that you can do to try and stave off Alzheimer's and dementia. And sometimes, you know, quite simple things like doing the crossword in the morning, keeping your brain active. And here's another thing, keep working. As you get older, keep working, because you know, you've got a reason to get up every day, keeps your brain active. It's not a guarantee, but it can help.
But it's not always possible. If you're a manual labourer, if you work in retail or whatever, you can't, you know, necessarily keep working on the building site or keep working in shops or whatever into your 80s.
And the word puzzles and things like that.
No, it's true. We've got to exercise our brains.
Emma, should we take a look at... we're talking a lot about how many people are heading out the country. 2 million, I believe, this weekend. But we're having tourists flock to us as well,
Well, apparently, I mean, the thing is, this is weird, because we hear that no one's going to Europe because it's too hot there. Everybody's staying here, but they're not staying here because it's grey skies here. So everyone's trying to get abroad. We're hearing all these different conflicting stories. Who knows the reality? The reality is there's chaos in the travel, you know, in any kind of travel attempts at the moment. But the piece in the Guardian is saying that lots of Americans are coming here, that they've been booking holidays, been looking at Europe, and then they see the intense temperatures, so they're all flocking to the UK. So get ready for the Yankees, they're coming.
Well, I'll tell you what,
this will give a good boost to the...
It's good news.
Yeah, good news for the tourist industry.
Yeah.
Good news that we're not sort of complete pariahs after Brexit, as we were told we were all going to be. No one was going to come here. That we would be totally, you know, not a desirable destination at all. It seems that the US, at least, are booking lots and lots of trips to... They were destined for Southern Europe, and they've opted to choose the UK or Ireland instead.
Oh, well, forget about Ireland.
Do you know one of the things that's going to appeal to people?
What?
Our climate.
Well, it will at the minute.
Because in other countries that are far too hot, you realise now this is a very temperate and very pleasant climate. Although we think this is a lousy summer, a lot of people... I had a friend over this week from Spain, and he's loving being here. He said, God, I love England.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? But all these Americans, they'll be flocking to Leicestershire and places like that, won't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
All the Australians coming in the old...
Tottenham Court Road.
Yes.
An American friend of mine said he was coming to Tottenham, and it turned out he was trying to meet at Tottenham Court Road.
Oh, right.
Tottenham. I
always remember there was some Australian wanting to go to Lugabaruga.
Loughborough.
Oh, yes.
Lugabaruga. Edinburgh.
Oh, that's
Edinburgh. Edinburgh.
Well, it makes sense, but it's all wrong.
Only Britain could come up with names like that, couldn't they? You know, it's so British, isn't it, really? And so inconsistent. How would anybody know how to pronounce anything?
Exactly. Leicester Square is a very difficult
how would you
word.
ever know? Bicester.
Oh,
you know,
Bicester.
Bicester.
Yeah. Clapham is Clapham. Yep, it's difficult. It's difficult.
Oh, there you go.
Maybe we should stop with our terrible American accents.
They're all very welcome here. Come and spend your dollars.
And they might like our baked beans, David.
Yes.
If they're coming to Britain.
Well, Emma likes this story as well, but I nicked it off her.
No, not really.
Baked beans, it's actually the Sun.
Right.
And it's page 3 of the Sun.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. But nowadays on page 3 of the Sun, we have baked beans. And we've been had. This is the...
have we?
We've been had. Customers have caught sight of a cheeky move by Heinz after it cut the number of baked beans and upped the sauce.
Oh.
And for the first time now, the liquid content is actually more than the solid content. So you're actually down 10 beans.
10 whole beans.
10 whole beans.
I love the idea of someone counting the beans. But this shrinkflation thing is a bit naughty.
Yeah. Bean counters.
Well,
they're bean counters.
Literally.
They are.
Yeah.
But they keep the price the same and they shrink the packets, or they do nifty things like that. Or we covered a story a couple of months ago about upping the sugar content of things and reducing the, nutrient quantity of things.
Or they up the price, Emma, even worse.
Up the price and shrink the packet.
The cans of beans here have gone up £1.40.
Everything shrinks, and you see your biro there.
I do.
There's even less ink now in your biro than there was before. They run out quicker. Everything's shrinking. Luckily, I'm not, because I've got nowhere to shrink to.
Well, there you go. Well, no.
Unlike Diddy Dixon.
Diddy Dixon, I know, I'm going to shrink. But it's interesting, the shrinkflation thing is very frustrating.
It's bad. It's bad.
I mean, away from the... It was Lurpak. I had a Lurpak one, and I've forgotten. Oh, here we go. Jean. She loves a Lurpak, and she thought it was getting more reasonable in price, because it has been very expensive, all these butters, until I realised it now weighs 50 grams less than it used to.
I think it's really dishonest, actually. I think shrinkflation is not a joke. I think it's really dishonest when they reduce the size of something and just keep the price the same. I just wonder how... I mean, I suppose caveat emptor, the customer buys it, you need to, just buy what you buy, but it just seems terribly
It's the easy way out, isn't it?
Yeah, but if you've got to, if they're struggling, I don't know if these companies are struggling or not, but if you're struggling, it's one way to do it.
Yeah.
Ian says PG Tips tea bags have dropped from 240 to 210 per box. And Darren in Ashford, and this will disturb you, particularly you, David, he says, I got a home delivery yesterday of Iceland Cumberland sausages, and they look a lot smaller than normal.
Wow. Even sausages are getting smaller.
You want to measure those sausages, Darren?
Yeah, but Karen's made a good point. She says, for me, it's the principle.
Yeah.
The alteration of goods and services, regardless of whatever kind, the more complacent we are, the more they get away with it, and it's us who ends up the losers.
Yeah. It's not about being complacent. We don't have a choice. I just think it's very dishonest. And if you're, I don't know, you're an older person or you have visual impairment or something, you don't necessarily know that it's gone down from 250 grams to 200. You're just paying the same and thinking, this isn't going as far,
Yeah, you don't always notice what sizes they are, do you? We don't sort of pay that much attention. What's this brain toll of COVID in the Express, Emma?
Yeah, very depressing. Apparently, if you get long COVID, the results can be as bad as ageing 10 years. If you get bad symptoms and you're struggling. I don't think we know enough about long COVID. We hear about it. We hear really bad reports on how it can affect people. So we don't have the research. We don't have the time needed to know enough about long COVID. But researchers at King's College have been saying that people with COVID and other symptoms were given tasks, memory, attention, reasoning, processing speed and motor control. And the impact of COVID on the brain was comparable to the effect of a 10-year increase in age in our brains. So, back to dementia and things, it's a really, really worrying picture.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I don't know what to make of things like long COVID. I've never had ordinary COVID, as far as I know.
Still a lot of people still getting COVID?
Yeah,
There's another round of it now.
Is there?
Getting COVID.
A new wave?
A new wave. Well, I don't know about a new wave, but there's certainly more...
Is it really?
People getting it at the moment.
And also, I don't know how reliable the statistics are, because no one I know is testing. We're not testing in the same ways. It's very hard when you hear people talking about long COVID, and they talk about what they've been through. It's very hard to kind of not
But like you said, the research hasn't been done yet. I mean, anecdotally, you hear so much, don't you? I mean, I was talking to a lady the other day who says her hair's completely changed. She was hospitalised with COVID a few years ago, and now she's got like kind of bald patches in her head from where.
But do we know that is from COVID?
Exactly.
It's hard
to know, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to doubt people's personal experiences, but is the science.
Just quickly, David, in the mirror, if you want to buy, as I know you often do, a replica Premier football kit, you've got to fork out more money.
This is going to really upset you, I can tell. But replica shirts rip off, and they're going up, like everything else, they're going up by 26%.
Ouch.
The highest rise is Nottingham Forest, and theirs is going up to £75 for a replica shirt. You'll also pay a lot for Brentford, Bournemouth and West Ham. They've all risen a lot. But here's the best bargain you can have. Fulham replica shirt. 80 quid, cheap at half the price.
Right.
Is that your team by any chance, David?
Well, it just happens to be.
Wow.
Yes, I am a cottager.
Are you? Well...
Well, that's what we're called, Fulham supporters. They're called cottagers.
Well... That'll be a headline tomorrow morning, David. Good to see you very much indeed.
Thank you very
David,
much.
Emma.
Thank you.
Thank you. You better get off quite quickly now. Thanks very much. Honestly, it's always a liability when Diddy David's in. Honestly,
David.
it is.
And Diddy Dixon, for that matter.
And Diddy Dixon.
Yeah. Well, today, the centenary of the First World War Memorial in Leicestershire will be marked in remembrance of the local people who died serving in the armed forces.
Yeah, the Caroline Tower in Loughborough is thought to be unique as a standalone monument and instrument, and it was opened 100 years ago today.
Well, our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis is there for us this morning. Good morning to you, Will, and this is a really important day, isn't it? Really important. 100 years marking since this First World War memorial.
Yes, you can go to any town or city across the breadth of Britain and there will be something that local people feel a really deep connection to. And here in Loughborough in Leicestershire, it is the Caroline Tower. It's 46 metres tall. You can see the base of it in the background, and right at the top there's a special instrument that plays bells. There's only 15 of them in the country, but as you say, this one's unique because it's in a standalone tower. Most are as part of a church or something like that. And it is 100 years since this tower was officially opened, paid for by the local people after the First World War, and somebody who's a little bit of an expert on it because you're the chair of the local museum as well as a Loughborough local is Mel. Just describe for me what it means to celebrate and remember 100 years of this tower at the heart of Loughborough.
Well, thank you for the expert tag. Well, it's very pleasing to be here today. It's exactly 100 years ago to this day that thousands of people from not only from Loughborough but from far and wide came to see the unveiling of this war memorial.
Why did it matter so much to people 100 years ago to have something that's really special to mark the people that gave their lives in the First World War?
Well, it's not something we'd done before. There are very few memorials to people that died in previous conflicts, but the people that died in the First World War were the people from down your street, people that everybody knew, sons, uncles, brothers, husbands.
And it's 100 years now since this memorial was opened. Why does it still matter to people of Loughborough as something that they can see from their window, but also the names of people that they maybe had relatives of?
I think it's important that we do keep these names alive, that people can look at this building and remember why it was built and the sacrifices that those men made.
And you're a Loughborough local, you've been here all your life.
I am.
I know that you've got a few names on there that are of your relatives. Just describe those for me.
Yes, certainly. My mother's uncle is in fact on the plaque to the left. My father's uncle is on the plaque to the right. And so it has a special meaning to me as well.
What does it mean to you when you come down and you see those names and you know that connection to your real personal life?
I'm always uplifted whenever I can come into this beautiful park and see this building. It is such a beautiful and noble building that you can't not be moved by it.
And it's not just beautiful on the eyes, it's beautiful on the ears because a carillon is a musical instrument, and I had the joy, we'll say the joy, of going 90 steps up right to the top, 46 metres high. And you can see across all of Loughborough, but you can hear the bells when you're up there and they're deafening, and you can hear them across Loughborough. What does that sound mean to people here in Loughborough and to you?
I'm sure they find it very pleasing. Yes, I do remember a lady coming here one day, 100 years old. It was a birthday, and Caroline, the Borough Carillionaire, played Happy Birthday on the bell. An absolute magic moment.
It's incredible. I know that you're celebrating here today. Charnwood Borough Council are hosting a whole number of recitals as well as events here in the park. The rain might be a little bit dodgy, but I don't think people would stay away when it means this much to them.
Will, thanks very much indeed. But lovely to hear his thoughts, actually, as well. I mean, but it's so important to remember these things and to mark these things, I think. It's only with history, remembering history, that we don't repeat, hopefully, don't repeat some of these mistakes.
Yeah, really important for the people of Loughborough as well. Thank you, Will, for bringing us that. But do stay with us. Got lots more to come, including updates on the Great British Getaway this weekend. This is GB News.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A damp and breezy start for many of us, feeling cool today under the wind and rain. But northern Scotland, the place to be if you fancy sunny skies. It is a bright start here, a cool start, but actually those sunny spells in the north and northwest of Scotland continuing into the afternoon. 1 or 2 showers for parts of Aberdeenshire, Caithness, Sutherland, as well as Shetland and Orkney. A drier start for southeast England. Not much rain moving in here, actually, just light rain on and off by the afternoon. Elsewhere, it is spells of rain, a strengthening breeze, especially around southwest coast, making it feel cool. 16 to 18 Celsius at best. Some places lower where we've got the persistent wet weather. And further persistent bands of rain move through during Saturday evening. Much of it by midnight moving out into the North Sea, but it stays damp and cloudy. A lot of low cloud around for England and Wales overnight, as well as southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, and as a result it's going to be a relatively mild night, 16 Celsius in places by dawn, but it's still breezy in the south. As we start off Sunday, it's a slow start with the cloud eventually lifting and breaking. Sunny spells giving way to showers in southern parts. Central areas, northern England, southern Scotland, North Wales, seeing persistent bands of rain once again. Scotland, a cloudier day, but actually brightening up later with 1 or 2 showers in the far north. Cool in the far north, warmer towards the south.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant, we're being read my superstar panel. They're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 9 o'clock on Saturday, the 22nd of July. Today, a surge in getaways. More than 2 million holidaymakers heading overseas this weekend. 13 million on the roads. Are you going to have a smooth journey?
The Conservatives need to claw back support after their by-election defeats. Is ditching net zero the way to do it?
Remembering a music icon. Tributes pour in for the legendary crooner Tony Bennett, who died yesterday at the grand age of 96.
And what's happening today weather-wise?
It's a damp start for many of us, but will it be a weekend washout, or is there any brighter weather on the horizon? I'll have the full forecast coming up soon.
Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
So, shrinkflation is really getting your goat this morning.
You're getting on your goat.
Or getting on your goat, as you would like to say.
Yeah.
There's so many people, I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of you, with loads of different examples. This is the worst one I've seen from Sue. I don't know where she's buying it, but apple strudel.
Oh.
Sounds very nice, doesn't it? Pre-COVID, 89 pence for two. Now, £2.20.
That's a big jump.
That's one heck of a jump in 3-4 years, isn't it?
That's difficult. It really, really is. We're also talking about soap this morning. There was a story in the papers that apparently people are buying less bars of soap. Fewer bars of soap. Yes, fewer bars of soap. Apparently, sales of hand sanitizer are up, but sales of soap are down. Well, Pam says she doesn't use soap at all because she has a condition. Warm water on its own gets you clean and fresh. Not using soap is no problem.
Oh.
Says Pam.
Wouldn't fancy that, Pam.
Martin makes a good point, who says, we're told that hard-up Brits are cutting back on soap. The previous headline says that 2 million people are going to be travelling abroad this weekend alone. Something doesn't add up.
Not everyone's hard up, but there might be much cheaper holidays. See, it's not just about having no money, it's about having reduced money, and so people maybe are having shorter holidays or cheaper holidays, things like that. Maybe, you know, I've really cut back on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Really cut
I think
back
lots of
on a lot
people have
stuff.
changed their shopping habits.
And I'm not struggling to get by, but I'm still saving a whole load of money. Ennis in Wiltshire says Beck's and Heineken alcohol-free beer packs have reduced from 15 bottles to 12, but the price has gone up by £2.
Valerie says she's noticed it in her toothpaste.
Oh.
100 grams of toothpaste were the tubes that she used to buy. They've now shrank to 75 grams. And she says the ends of the tube feel empty.
I wonder if they've just not resized the tubes, which would save a bit of money. But Stevie in Belfast says, can't believe people are complaining about the small change in the quantity of food in tins. In beans, Heinz beans have gone down by 10 beans per tin, when some people in the world are starving.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's a fair point, but I guess the argument is it's just that, you know, the amount of what you're getting is going down, but the price is going up.
Yeah.
So other people may be struggling a lot worse than we are, but you still feel ripped off.
And that's not a nice feeling, is it? It's not, especially in a cost of living crisis. And lots of you getting in touch on the by-elections. Of course, still lots of reaction to that from all three parties. John says, Stephen asked, what do the Lib Dems stand for? We know they stand for the EU, and with it, open doors to migration, EU rules and governance from Brussels.
Surely that position has got to change, or maybe they think that, you know, there's plenty of Remainers who are still very passionate about that, and plenty of people who've changed their mind. Maybe they think that is a way forward. You sort of think it's an issue that needs to just be put to bed now.
Yeah.
Don't you?
What else do the Lib Dem stand for? Let us know.
Margaret in Wales, because one of the arguments is that the government should get rid of all the net zero promises and things, and to try and get people back on side. Margaret in Wales says net zero is too expensive. People are aware that they're paying extra on their bills, but they're not convinced by it.
OK.
But don't we have to do something? I don't know. It's with net zero is one of those issues where I really don't know where my mind is.
No.
Because I sort of think I'm not a great climate activist. Let's put it that way. But I do think the cleaner we are, and the more energy efficient we are, and all this. Well, that's just good. That's common sense. Clean energy makes common sense. But as Margaret says, we are paying a lot for that process. So how do you balance? I still think it needs to happen, but at what rate and at what speed and at what cost?
But is that a top issue for you? Is net zero something that really, really matters? Is that what would, you know, decide what you vote when it comes to a general election? Or is it something else?
You're more likely to vote on cost of living, aren't you? And having more money in your pocket to actually
It's going to be on the economy, I think, this next election. But do let us know what you think, what the issues that really matter to you. Do let us know. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Well, mind you, if you are lucky enough to be getting away, because it is the start of the summer, first weekend of the summer holidays, it's going to be chaotic for a lot of people. Not everyone. 13 million people on the roads, 2 million holidaymakers trying to get overseas this weekend. So today is going to be the busiest day, according to ABTA.
But there's also rail strikes going on, airport queues and delays at the port of Dover, which could potentially make those journeys anything but pleasant.
Well, let's check in with our Yorkshire and Humber reporter, Anna Riley, who's in Hull for us this morning. What's happening there, Anna?
Good morning. I'm at Hull Paragon Interchange, the train station here in Hull, and I'm at the RMT picket line that you can see there behind me, where people are gathering on strike because trains are running at a very disrupted or low service today because of this strike action, or not running at all. And this is surely going to impact people that are trying to get away on holiday. And with this wet weather that we've got, it's raining here, who can blame them for trying to get away? But it could be seen that this strike action from the RMT has been put in place on such a busy day because people now can't rely on the trains to get to the airports, to get on holiday. So they're going to have to get on the roads, which we already know is congested. You mentioned those figures there, over 12 million leisure trips taking place between Friday and Monday. So the roads are going to be even busier because of this strike action. ASLEF as well, that is the train drivers union. They've not gone for an all-out strike, but they have put a ban on working overtime for their drivers, which means there's also going to be a much more disrupted service because of that. It's over 20,000 RMT members that are rail workers that are on strike, and they're striking over pay. They say that there's a cost of living crisis going on and that they aren't getting paid enough. The mandate to strike was extended by the RMT on the 5th of May for another 6 months to try and get that pay deal from the government that the RMT believe that their workers deserve. But it's not just pay and helping with the cost of living, it's also about conditions. There's concerns from the union about these driverless trains and plans for that. And there's also currently concerns about keeping ticket offices open. I don't know if you can see the banner here behind me, but that's something that the RMT are also petitioning people to do today. The government has said to train stations that they want to shut more than 1,000 train offices across England. That's disrupted certain passengers. People have spoken out about it. They say they don't want to deal with a machine, they want to deal with a person. But there's also concern from the RMT about people's jobs, these people that work in ticket offices. What's going to happen to them when they close? So there's a consultation that's currently going on for the public to have their say about the potential closure of these ticket offices. That ends next Wednesday, so the RMT here are urging people to look at that consultation and give their views if they have an opinion on the closure of the ticket offices. Advice, as always on these strike days, is to check before you travel, so see if your train is running, and if you are trying to get on holiday, perhaps do alternate transport other than the trains, because today certainly they're not going to be relied on.
We know what, Anna, do we know what the people of Hull and the surrounding areas sort of make of these ongoing strikes? Because although there may be support for those workers if they, if they're family and friends and things, but also, this is going to be damaging the local economy, isn't it? Because it's not just about people travelling out of Hull, it's about people wanting to travel to Hull and Beverley and all those beautiful surrounding areas, particularly in the summertime. So this is going to damage the economy at a time when the high streets there really need the help.
It certainly is. Yes, there are concerns about that. People that can't use cars that rely on trains to get around and see all these gorgeous, beautiful places that we've got in Britain to see on the rail. Of course, there's frustration from people about that, and this has been going on for more than a year now, Stephen, this strike action. So you could say that there was some public support at the beginning, but is that dwindling now because the action's going on so long? And are people becoming a little bit apathetic as well? When I've been speaking to people in the region, they've said they just don't know now whether they can rely on train services, so they tend to try and use other modes of transport. And then, of course, when the rail industry is already suffering, we've gone through the pandemic, haven't we, when many people were working from home and not using the rail service. There's a lot of money that's leaked from the network, so it's a little bit of a chicken and egg situation, isn't it? People are going on strike because they want more money, but then passengers aren't using the rail services and are relying on other things. And it's not just tourism as well and getting people around the country, it's also that knock-on for other businesses. I don't know if you can see behind me, there's a taxi rank just here outside the train station. Obviously they're going to be impacted. They're used to waiting outside on the rank and picking passengers up and taking them to their destinations when they've got off the train. And there's also businesses inside the train station as well. There's cafes that run in there, other shops, we've got WH Smith, other stationers, so they're going to have an impact as well on their pockets with this rail strike action.
Anna, thanks very much indeed.
That's a really good point, isn't it, about that knock-on impact on those other businesses outside of the railways.
I tell you what, Hull's such a lovely place to visit. It's got a bad reputation, Hull.
Never been to Hull.
It's one of those places that people sort of think, oh, Hull isn't very nice. It's lovely in Hull. Really, really like it. There's so much to do. It's beautiful. The old town, you see there, it's just absolutely stunning.
Is it on the water?
Yeah, it's right on the coast.
Yeah, nice. Well, I should get myself up there, I think.
I've
heard about the aquarium. I've heard about a very big aquarium.
The aquarium's fantastic, yeah. But it's just like a really nice place. It's one of those places that doesn't get the attention it needs, or it deserves.
Well, that lovely video is nice, isn't it?
Right.
Go up and visit Hull. Once the trains are running.
Yep.
Get yourself up there, I think. Well, let's go up to Scotland, shall we now? And join our Scotland reporter, Tony Maguire, who's at Glasgow Airport for us this morning. Morning to you, Tony. Good to see you. How's it looking there?
Good morning. Well, certainly this is supposed to be the busiest day of travel this summer across the UK. Scotland is somewhat of a cheat in this calculation because, of course, our schools wound up 3 weeks ago at the end of June. However, what that's meant is that we've had our rush and actually we've created some space, and there are quite some passengers coming up from the likes of Carlisle in the north of England who are looking for a perhaps easier airport. To give you an idea of how busy airports are up and down the country, here at Glasgow we're expecting about 27,000 passengers to fly in and out of here every day. If we look at Manchester, then again across this weekend we're looking at about 200,000 passengers and about 71,000 for Bristol, I believe. Now, this is the busiest weekend according to ABTA, not quite the 100,000 from Glasgow Airport that was mentioned earlier. However, 2 million Brits are jetting off to the Great Blue Yonder this weekend because the English schools and the Welsh schools have all wrapped up. Now, airports are quietly confident that for the first time, passenger numbers this summer will return to pre-pandemic levels, which is going to be a big boost. And of course, that is the real test, because we all remember the summer of discontent and the real travel disruption trying to leave airports this time last year. It seems to be, from at least I can only speak for Glasgow, that a lot of those issues seem to have been resolved. All the departure board, they're all running green, all the flights are scheduled to leave on time, and it's very much a different picture of the airport than what we saw last year. Now, I was listening to Anna there talking about the RMT strikes. The industrial action isn't just for rail, unfortunately, this summer. We are going to see some airport strikes from various portions of the staff, particularly in Gatwick and Luton. Now, Gatwick Airport, if you're flying out from there this weekend, then it's okay, you're safe, because that industrial action is going to be for the following 2 weekends, and then Luton Airport is going to have individual days of strike action on the 28th and the 1st, I believe, of August. Now, what Anna was saying there, and if we think back to earlier in the summer, RMT and ASLEF, quite a lot of the industrial action is the targeted days that are meant to cause most disruption. And it's just an interesting takeaway that, the airport staff unions, well, they know obviously this weekend is going to be the busiest weekend for travel, but they're giving passengers a free pass. It's certainly this weekend before they continue the industrial action. No industrial action in Glasgow. Glasgow staff were lucky enough to, not lucky at all, they fought quite hard for an 11.1% pay increase. So no industrial action. So if you're flying out from Glasgow this summer, then you should be hoping to get away from the absolutely torrential weather, which is going to drown us all. Wherever you go in the world, it can't get any worse than the weather's looking here over the next few weeks.
Bright and breezy.
That's
a lovely way to end. Thank you, Tony, for that. And best of luck to anybody flying out from Glasgow. It does look quite calm, actually, behind Tony.
Well, as I say, it's the big difference. If schools shut 3 weeks ago, then that sort of rushes over.
Yeah.
Clearly, now is the time to travel out of Glasgow Airport.
Yeah, and as Tony was saying earlier, lots of people actually going up from England to Scotland.
No, why not?
It's a clever idea.
Why not? It's the way to do it. You've got to think clever with these things, I think, a little bit. But Tony's saying, well, the weather's awful. Well, it might be, but apparently, as saying in the papers, there's a whole host of Americans want to come here because it's cooler.
Yeah.
And all right, they're wanting a bit of cooler weather, bit of drizzle, bit of drick.
Yeah.
So there you
go.
Well,
we complain about it, but it's probably the right kind of weather to be out and about and walking and seeing the sights.
Well, there you go.
You can't do that in 45-degree heat, can you, if you're on
No.
the continent? So perhaps this is where it should be. This is where people should be coming to visit this summer.
They come over here and spend the money. Great, it's good for us.
It's good for us, exactly. We shouldn't complain, should we?
No, we shouldn't. Now, Rishi Sunak is apparently going to launch an aggressive campaign to fight Labour's poll lead with policies on immigration and crime. Comes after those big losses in the by-election results. 3 seats up for grabs. Not a clean sweep. He held on to 1, but perhaps by default, but 2 big losses elsewhere.
Well, according to The Telegraph, ministers have also urged the Prime Minister to ditch key net zero pledges. And this follows the unexpected win in Uxbridge, where ULEZ was weaponised against Labour.
Let's talk to our political reporter, Catherine Forster, who's here. Morning, Catherine.
Morning.
What are we to make of this? I mean, it's on a lot of the papers this morning. There's clearly pressure, but are we likely to see action in any of these areas, particularly the Green agenda?
I think the Green agenda, I'm less sure, but certainly what they're thinking about in terms of taking a tougher line on immigration, most definitely. I mean, we've seen that they've got the illegal migration bill. Points of difference with Labour, also trans rights, of course. That is OK. Many people will see that as a niche issue, but there's many women who do think there's a conflict with women's rights and are wary of parties who can't say what a woman is. So the Conservatives will think there are votes to be won there. And then also on crime, they want to take a much tougher line on crime. Of course, you know, they're saying the police numbers are back up 20,000. Well, they previously cut 20,000 off them, so we're sort of back to where we were. But they think that these are sort of wedge issues. In terms of green policies, certainly there's a lot of concerns, aren't there, in terms of not that people don't support net zero ultimately, and we've seen the heat wave in Europe, and 60,000 people died in Europe last year because of the heat. But the costs to people in the middle of a cost of living crisis, things like banning petrol cars from 2030, banning, you know, conventional boilers from 2035, things that are massively expensive. Possibly they may row back on some of those dates. But then, of course, there's a lot of support for green policies too. But they're trying to differentiate themselves from Labour, I think, and they think that this very fortunate win for them that's allowed them to have some good news in Uxbridge is maybe the way to go. But I'm not sure, because ULIS is a very specific thing. I mean, there's 5 Conservative-led councils in London. Took Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, to the High Court about this. We'll get the judgment probably by the end of the month. And there's similar schemes in other cities, but that's not something that you can sort of roll out that across the whole country, is it?
Should we talk about the Labour Party and Sir Keir Starmer, because he will feel energised, won't he, after that result in Selby? It was that True Blue seat that turned red, but it was really low turnout there, wasn't it? So you might also read into that he's still got a long way to go to get people excited about Labour.
Yes, I mean, a huge swing and a massive historic victory for Labour, and shows that, yes, they are on course potentially to form the next government, and the polls that put them sort of 20 points ahead seem to be correct at the moment. But as you say, the turnout was low, well under 50%. And it sounds like in that seat particularly, it wasn't so much that the Labour vote was up hugely, it was that the Conservative vote was down by around 20,000, that we think Conservative voters, fed up, have just sat at home now. Would they do that in a general election? We don't know.
No. And then meanwhile, we've got Somerton and Froome. Ed Davey with his marching band and cartoon cannon yesterday. I mean, get the clowns out of number 10, he says, while using a paper match to supposedly light. I mean, I find this sort of politics laughable, really. I mean, what's he getting the Tories out of number 10? What's he doing? Effectively advising people to vote for the Labour Party, because the Lib Dems aren't going to get into number 10. I mean, that's pretty clear.
No, they're not going to get into number 10. But of course, it is possible that Labour might not win an outright majority, and it is possible that the Lib Dems might be the key in a coalition. They did it before with the Conservatives. They're certainly not going to go there again, that's for sure. The Conservatives are on their own. They haven't got any friends who will do a deal with them. But the Lib Dems could be very useful to Labour, and they are cock-a-hoop. I know what you say about the stunts, but they love these stunts. We had the cannon yesterday. I was with them in Maidenhead, the local elections. They had a cuckoo clock, which didn't work, and the girl that had spent so much of her time doing it, they were absolutely gutted. But yesterday's went quite well. But they are really thrilled because they feel that they are coming back. And these sorts of areas used to be strongholds for them, and they think that they can get, you know, a lot more seats in the election. But of course, they had all the resources to throw into this one by-election, and they're not going to have that when they're fighting dozens and dozens of seats.
No, and they had the advantage, I guess, of being able to say, well, we're not the Tories here, you know, vent your fury, vote for us.
Yeah.
It's a different kettle of fish in a general election, because you have to say, well, what do the Lib Dems stand for? What am I voting for? And at the moment, I mean, I couldn't answer that. And I talk about politics every day of the week.
Yes, yes. And of course, also with these by-elections, it was specifically, you know, a lot of people were cross with the Conservative MPs that were standing down. And in David Warburton's case, allegations of drug use, inappropriate sexual behaviour. So there would definitely be a backlash against that. But yes, let's hear what the Lib Dems actually are proposing, because, of course, we know in 2019 they were, let's reverse Brexit, let's just revoke Article 50, you know, and that went down not surprisingly, very, very badly. So what do they stand for now? Obviously, they are pro-Europe. Ed Davey, one thing, does talk a lot about social care because he's been a carer right through his life. He recognises the importance of that. And, of course, social care is still in crisis. We've had successive governments not deal with it. So that's something I suspect they will latch onto. But,
yeah. But it's just a final thought. The interesting thing about social care, and the big problem that every government has had over social care, is the price. It's very, very expensive to reform all that. And what we don't know is whether we can trust any of the economics coming out of the Lib Dems at the moment.
Yeah. And also, of course, social care is the sort of Cinderella service that's always neglected, but it does have a massive knock-on effect on the NHS because there's so many very old people in hospital who are miserable, who don't want to be there, but cannot get home because there isn't the care in place, and it's costing the NHS an absolute fortune.
Yeah. OK. Catherine, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Now, happy birthday to Prince George. He turns 10 today. We'll have more on this after the weather. This is GB News.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A damp and breezy start for many of us, feeling cool today under the wind and rain. But northern Scotland, the place to be if you fancy sunny skies. It is a bright start here, a cool start, but actually those sunny spells in the north and northwest of Scotland continuing into the afternoon. 1 or 2 showers for parts of Aberdeenshire, Caithness, Sutherland, as well as Shetland and Orkney. A drier start for southeast England. Not much rain moving in here, actually, just light rain on and off by the afternoon. Elsewhere, it is spells of rain, a strengthening breeze, especially around southwest coast, making it feel cool. 16 to 18 Celsius at best. Some places lower where we've got the persistent wet weather. And further persistent bands of rain move through during Saturday evening. Much of it by midnight moving out into the North Sea, but it stays damp and cloudy. A lot of low cloud around for England and Wales overnight, as well as southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, and as a result it's going to be a relatively mild night, 16 Celsius in places by dawn, but it's still breezy in the south. As we start off Sunday, it's a slow start with the cloud eventually lifting and breaking. Sunny spells giving way to showers in southern parts. Central areas, northern England, southern Scotland, North Wales, seeing persistent bands of rain once again. Scotland, a cloudier day, but actually brightening up later with 1 or 2 showers in the far north. Cool in the far north, warmer towards the south.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Morning, 9:31. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
And good morning to Linda.
Linda, hello Linda.
Who says, good morning from the Highlands of Scotland, where I am spending my holidays. Oh, lovely. No travel problems here, only peace, quiet, the mountains, the lochs, and Murdo, the Highland cow, who is next to me.
Oh, and I see, that sounds idyllic.
Doesn't it just?
Sounds absolutely perfect. Be a great place to go if you're not going to Hull. Dorothy's been in touch. She says, thank you, Stephen, for saying what a great place Hull is. So much history to be found, including, and this is true because I've seen it, the world's smallest window. It's on the wall of an ancient pub.
Oh, yeah? How small is it?
I mean, it's like tiny, tiny little window.
Well, what's the point of that?
I don't know, but it's fascinating. It
is fascinating, but I'd like to know why.
World's smallest window.
Why is it so small?
Yeah.
What's the use
It's
of
on
that?
black and everything, I think.
Yeah, and Deborah says, I'm with you on that one, Stephen. There are plenty of towns in Britain that make Hull look like Monaco.
True.
It has beautiful countryside and beaches around it, and then there's the fish and chips.
It's true.
I've heard good things about the fish and chips.
Yeah.
Anna Riley's done a nice live from there before.
With
I think it was
fish and
about
chips.
seagulls. Yes, and the fish and chips, and they did look really, really good.
And then if you want to go, there's Beverley just up the road, which is beautiful.
Is it?
It's proper, like the sort of biscuit box country village is Beverley. Lovely. It's great.
There's lots of wonderful places to explore if you can get there. That's the thing. It is the great
Yeah.
summer getaway this weekend. 2 million people going abroad. How many cars on the road?
13 million.
It's a lot. It's going to be busy out there. So best of luck to you if you're making a journey today. Do let us know where you're going. gbviews@gbnews.com.
And wherever you are going, one day it will all belong, sort of, to Prince George. Won't
Nice.
it? King George, as he will be at some point. Anyway, not for a while, because today he is celebrating his 10th birthday. And he's understood to be, I love this line, he's marking the milestone privately with his family.
I love that line.
I mean, look, he's not 70.
Yeah.
He's
not 18
70.
years old. He's not off to the club.
No, it's not a milestone. He's just going to be at home with jelly and ice cream. Mum and Dad and brother and sister.
Yeah.
Grandma and Grandad, probably.
I wonder if Catherine's made a cake.
Think she can make a cake?
Of course she can. She can do anything. Think she'd knock up a good...
I hope so.
Good birthday cake.
I hope so.
But look at this wonderful photo that's been released by the Prince and Princess of Wales, talking of them. They've released this photo taken of George earlier this month, I believe, at Windsor. Doesn't he look like his dad?
His dad at that age, almost identical.
Such long legs.
He has got long legs. He's shooting up now, isn't he? He's just hitting that age. shooting up. But it's just a really nice... It's a nice, boyish, laddish picture of what just looks like an ordinary young man, which I sort of think is how we want our royals to be now, a little bit more like the rest of us.
Well, and hopefully like Prince William, and some would say Prince Harry, a bit more normal, you know?
Well, we used to think that.
We used to think that, exactly. That has changed. But, you know, Prince William, we do see him, you know, really likes chatting to people and getting out and about and being amongst the people. It'd be really nice to see that as well. And I'm sure it will be passed on to the next generation.
I hope so.
With George. It was lovely this week seeing the 3 children out with their parents. And they are just so very good at doing the shaking and the chatting.
It's not the thing.
And the waving.
You can't be a royal child and have a tantrum, can you?
Can't. Even though Louis does like to be a little bit...
Because that would make every front page in the world, I should imagine, if that happened. But anyway...
They're growing into their role, aren't they?
They are, and I just think it's a nice picture of George, 10 years old, and it's... I mean, well, no, I suppose I remember William and Harry being born, but I was much younger then. To be sort of a proper adult and watch these royals be born and grow up is slightly different. It just feels different, you know.
They're the nation's children, aren't they?
Yeah. Anyway, our royal correspondent Cameron Walker has taken a look back at Prince George's first 10 years.
10 years ago, this street was full of royal fans and journalists eagerly awaiting the arrival of a future king with his parents to pose in front of the cameras. A lot have changed since that day. Queen Elizabeth was still on the throne. The world hadn't heard of Meghan Markle. Britain's future was bright. He was named George Alexander Louis, born into a modern world but destined to become head of an ancient institution. It's a delicate balance. The Prince and Princess of Wales take the privacy of their eldest son incredibly seriously, but they're aware of the inevitable public interest in him. Royal biographer Robert Jobson thinks Prince William and Princess Catherine have given their son the right level of media exposure.
He's fully aware of what's in store for him, but ultimately the most important thing is to give him time and space to develop as a child until the inevitable is upon him, because at some stage, you know, this young lad is going to have to be the king, and it brings with it a lot of weight of responsibility.
The young prince's sense of duty already shines through. He was his grandfather's page during May's coronation. Pomp, pageantry, and rubbing shoulders with foreign heads of state. A glimpse into his future.
Hello, David Attenborough. What animal do you think will become extinct next?
It looks like Prince George is taking after his father and grandfather, caring passionately about the planet. Last year, the boss of conservation charity Tusk exclusively revealed to GB News that the future king has already been doing his bit to help Africa's wildlife.
Prince George very sweetly did a little cake sale to raise money for Tusk during lockdown, and wrote a very sweet card, you know, about it, you know, clearly demonstrating his concern for, you know, Africa's wildlife.
George also volunteered with his family to renovate a scout hut during the national Big Help Outs this year, but the young prince is still a child and has plenty of time for fun. This year, George was spotted enjoying a day out at the Ashes with Prince William, as well as Wimbledon and an air show. Today, he turns 10, and secondary school is not far away. He was spotted visiting Eton College last month, an indication perhaps his parents are considering sending their son to the very prestigious school where Prince William was once a pupil. It looks like Prince George is set to follow in his father's footsteps in more ways than one. Cameron Walker, GB News.
See, I just think it's nice.
Such a lovely family.
They do come across as a nice family. I mean, look, we don't know them. We sort of think we do. But you are the people's princess.
Well, I am. Self-appointed, nonetheless.
Yeah, self-appointed. It's a weird thing to say, isn't it? I would very much like to meet William and Kate.
Me too.
Just to have a chat with them. Well, it's never going to happen. If I meet them in a lineup somewhere, it'll be, you know,
I'm
Your
sure
Highness.
they love you.
But I'd actually like to, you know, just have a chat, go for a drink.
Yeah, me
See
too.
what they're like.
Yeah. I do think that Catherine and I would really get on.
Do you?
Yeah, what do you think?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Swap clothes.
That's what I think. Fashion.
What do you think? Yeah.
Yeah. But apparently, I was reading this week, they are trying to, the Prince and Princess of Wales, trying to take more after the Middletons in their raising of the children and their parenting style.
Yes.
So a little bit away from royal life.
Well, no,
I
think that's a good thing because look, it's not to be critical of Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth, that is, but you know there was a distance. I think there was a distance with Charles and his father, and it wasn't quite as sort of normal families, which is healthy. It's healthy to have a normal family like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, have a cuddle. You want to be able to cuddle your mum and dad and tell them that you love them.
And it is nice seeing that. You know, I think we saw it at the Jubilee. It was Louis asking to go sit on then Prince Charles's lap. Very sweet.
Was he allowed to do it?
Yeah. Went and had a cuddle. Lovely moment.
See, that's what you need.
It is nice to see, isn't it? But happy birthday to Prince George. 10 today. And it is wonderful to see him growing up.
Yeah. Now, from sort of the beginning of one life to the end of another, the great Tony Bennett has sadly passed away. 96 years old, though, and he was still going strong up until last year when he was still performing. He's just legendary, and a voice like butter. We're going to be talking about him in just a moment.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But
and action.
Sergeant, we've been read my superstar panel. They're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You are watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
Very good morning to you. Now I have to say good morning to Mary. Mary, City Travel Mary, if you're watching right now, she says, please can we stop using the term Brexiteers and Remainers, because I did throw that out there earlier on. It's all done. Don't see the purpose anymore. I agree entirely, actually. I do agree entirely. We've just got to forget about it now, haven't we? Either which way, you would just get on with it.
Yeah.
So I agree. But she says, do you read tweets or only emails?
We do.
Well, there's your answer.
We do read
To be fair, I don't look at my Twitter thing very often whilst we're on air, but we do. We all get piled into these lists by Robin, who you saw the other day. So there you go. But yeah, thanks, Mary,
Made
for
a
that
surprise appearance, did our Robin? But yes, we love you getting in contact with us. So
Of course we do.
continue to do so. Email address is here, gbnews@gbnews.com. You can tweet us at gbnews.
Now, let's look back in history, should we, a little bit, because today the centenary of a First World War memorial in Leicestershire is going to be marked in remembrance of the local people who died serving in the armed forces.
The Carillion Tower in Loughborough is thought to be unique as a standalone monument and instrument. It was opened 100 years ago today.
Well, our East Midlands...
A familiar sound for Loughborough locals. Unknown below, it's Caroline alone playing the bells from above.
When I'm up here and I'm playing, I know that I can be heard throughout the town. This is one of my favourite. It's a popular classic.
"46 metres high, the Caroline Tower has been a part of the town's identity for generations. There's only 15 Carillons in the entire country, but this one's unique in a standalone tower. More than just a pretty tune, it's a memorial to the men from Loughborough who gave their lives defending Britain. At the base, the names of the 478 men killed from here in the First World War and conflicts since. It's the landmark centenary, 100 years since opening. Councillor Tillotson is lead for regeneration and towns at the council.
100 years is a long time. It's our war memorial and it's significant to many, many local people because it's a war memorial. But it's significant to everyone in Loughborough because it's a focal point in the town.
The 47 bells were made in Loughborough and, like most war memorials, paid for by its people. A deep connection still runs between the townsfolk and their tower.
It's fantastic. It's lovely to still standing.
I like to hear that sound of that bell ringing.
Do you remember what it was like going up to the top?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Was it easy? Well, you were young.
Younger then, and then it ran up. You know.
Yeah, try it now.
Over the weekend, special recitals and events will mark the centenary.
To be able to play it in this centenary year is a real privilege.
100 years at the heart of the town, a tower still standing in memory of the fallen who never got to hear it play. Will Hollis, GB News in Loughborough.
Now, I have to say, I must have passed that in my youth because I used to go to Loughborough. When I was at university in Nottingham, we used to go to Loughborough and things every now and then. But I don't recall it. And it really makes me want to go back and see
Well,
it.
now you know. That could be a nice day trip for you now.
Could be, yeah, it could be. But, I mean, 100 years of that and the fact that it is an instrument as well, it's quite something, isn't it?
No, it's a really, really important story to tell. So thank you to Will Hollis for that. And it means a lot to the people of Loughborough as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, no, really, really special.
Talking about remembering things, we're remembering today Tony Bennett, the great Tony Bennett, who just seems to have been around forever. And partly because not only did he have his classics, and, you know, I mean, from donkey's years ago, but also the fact that he still kept popping up with all these modern stars.
Like Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga quite recently. I mean, in fact, that was only about a year ago, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, very, very recently.
Just keep popping up and would work with these new talents. And, well, there's Elton John, who we'd probably think was a new talent as well. And we've got some Billy Joel. There is the great Billy Joel. So he's sort of always constantly reinventing himself. Well, there he is with Amy Winehouse.
Amy Winehouse,
I mean, their voices went so beautifully together. But he has passed away at the age of 96. Steph is here. And it's one of those, whereas I do feel sorry. Also, 96 is a good age.
Yeah.
So I often say this when older people die. I want to celebrate him.
I think it's sad that he's no longer here, but we celebrate a collection of work that he's left behind. His agent said that it was only a few days ago he was performing on his piano his first single, Because of You. That came out in 1951 when he was just 24 years old, and he had his last album, Love for Sale, which only came out like 2 years ago when he was 96 years old. So this is a vast collection of work, and this is a man who's much to be celebrated. It was a sad day in the music industry yesterday, but then you had so many people coming out saying how he had influenced their careers, how he had shaped the business, and he was very much an American icon. As President Joe Biden came out with a tribute saying, he didn't just perform the classics, he was an American classic himself.
Yeah, and the tributes really have been pouring in.
They have. Elton John, he said he was saddened to hear about his death. He said he was a very classy singer and there'll be no one like him. He just had this smooth appeal about him, which, as you said, Stephen, it goes right across the generations, Like him and Lady Gaga, I would like to call them musical soulmates, actually, because they just seem to have found one another, and they made 2 albums together. His last performance was with Lady Gaga. She's yet to come out with a tribute, so I can imagine she must be quite devastated.
They were very close friends,
yeah.
and they shared a love of the same city.
Yeah, New York. And, with Lady Gaga's monster fans, they're much younger than the kind of fans that will be listening to Tony Bennett, but she introduced them to him, and I would say he was the master of reinvention.
But isn't it interesting that the people that he associated with musically, none of he's not one of these people who say, well, I'll go with this pop star because I think it'll boost my popularity. He always went with people who have got unbelievable talent.
Yes.
I mean, real talent themselves.
Yeah, both old and new, Even Frank Sinatra, come on, you can't really match Frank Sinatra when it comes to his voice. But he called Bennett like the most incredible singer in the business.
Wow.
And, people
but also
like
things like, I was looking through the papers, I mean, people like Ella Fitzgerald, I'm a huge Ella fan, I absolutely adore Ella Fitzgerald. And actually, at a time when you look at that, there was quite a lot of black singers that he worked with, which you don't think about now. But at the time, that will have been a bit controversial.
It would have been, and I think he was breaking barriers, and that's the power of jazz music. I think jazz should never be underestimated, how much of a dent it made back then and how much it makes a dent now. And I think it's only when people such as Tony Bennett, when they do go, that you realise how much he transcended through so many time periods and different icons. He's worked with people such as Elton John, Sir Paul McCartney as well, so that is a life well lived.
And this is interesting, so I was reading earlier, just on that point that you were just making, he served in the US Army in the Second World War as a rifleman. He actually was demoted, astonishingly, for dining with a black friend.
You see?
Whilst he was serving.
And some of that, you don't find out about this information until someone dies, and that's where the sad things comes on. But, to have a life of 96 years, these kind of stories will be coming out now.
Yeah. And it's amazing that when we hear detail like that, he was always a progressive, he was always just so before his time, so ahead of his time, really, in so many ways. And perhaps that's why he's lasted as long as he has and remained to be such a legend.
Always, and I think we always use the word icon, legend, but I think there's showbiz, which is all the gossipy side of things, but when you're talking about show business, you're talking about the legends, you're talking about the greats who know how to put on a show, and even in their old age, they're still as passionate about it. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2016. He didn't make it public knowledge till 2021, but he still had the knack to perform. He remembered all of his music, and it was just a natural-born talent in him.
Yeah, I mean, that's the remarkable thing, isn't it? I mean, it's pure talent.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And and a voice that... I mean, what I find remarkable, he did a concert last year, didn't he?
Yes.
Performance last year at 95. To keep a voice that you can still perform with at that age is remarkable.
You don't even hear stuff like that again, Stephen. It's such a fast-paced music industry now where we're not really creating legends anymore. So I think that's what makes it sad when people like Tony dies, because they take an era with them, they take a voice with them, and they take artwork with them as well.
Steph, what a legacy.
Yeah.
I mean, those songs that will be sung on dance floors and for decades and decades
I
to
know.
come.
And I think he will be definitely remembered and missed in the music industry.
He will.
Absolutely.
Steph, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much,
Just a
Steph.
quick one, Steph. Have you noticed food, very briefly, have you noticed food getting smaller?
They are. Like, even when I go to restaurants as well, I need to pick a bone with some of the servers because the plates are coming smaller, but the prices are going up.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Len says, if you buy a Kit Kat, you need a magnifying glass. So there you go. We'll leave it with that. It's been good to see you this morning. Steph, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We'll
Thank
see you
you.
tomorrow morning at 6. But Esther and Phil are here with the Saturday morning live show in just a moment.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A damp and breezy start for many of us, feeling cool today under the wind and rain. But northern Scotland, the place to be if you fancy sunny skies. It is a bright start here, a cool start, but actually those sunny spells in the north and northwest of Scotland continuing into the afternoon. 1 or 2 showers for parts of Aberdeenshire, Caithness, Sutherland, as well as Shetland and Orkney. A drier start for southeast England, not much rain.